At a formal gathering, the prince publicly declared the end of his engagement with Anastasia, drawing the attention of all present. Anastasia stood firm, confused by the sudden announcement. The prince introduced Amy, a commoner with healing powers, claiming she alone was fit to be queen. He praised Amy's kindness and condemned Anastasia's character as unworthy of royalty surrounded by peers. He accused Anastasia of harassing Amy, revealing it to the entire assembly. Cruel words echoed as Anastasia was labeled unworthy, while whispers and stares from the crowd deepened her isolation. Realization dawned on her face, understanding the motive behind the prince's actions as she observed the trembling Amy. Without warning, a mysterious force surged around Anastasia. Energy flared violently, she lost control and was flung through the air, her body thrown across the staircase. A young man, awakened in a distant place, sat up in shock. Within a sparkling school setting, a cheerful girl stood at the center. Gripped by unease as he processed the gravity of his situation, he sat up, identifying himself as an ordinary 8-year-old living in the royal capital of St. Laren. A sudden memory from a previous life surfaced, stirring a wave of confusion and realization. It became clear he had been reborn as a background character in a magical anime game world he once played. Gazing out over the rooftops, Alan realized the future spelled disaster not just for him, but for his mother and everyone in town. Recalling the game's plot, he remembered the moment Anastasia challenged Amy. Anastasia's defeat drove her into hiding, only to be ambushed by bandits before vanishing. Her fall triggered political instability, eventually plunging the kingdom into civil war, overwhelming the weakened royal forces and invading the capital without resistance. Frustrated and overwhelmed, Alan shouted into the air. His mother rushed in, startled by the noise, only to find her son yelling without any clothes on. He quickly smiled, brushing off her concern with an excuse about strange dreams that had felt too real. She gently urged him to get ready for breakfast, unaware of the storm inside him. With renewed resolve, Alan vowed to protect his mother no matter what fate awaited them. Alan acknowledged his memories of a past life but remained firmly tied to his mother and hometown, unwilling to flee. Driven by determination, he resolved to rewrite the future Anastasia's fate, the war. Everything, no matter what it took. At breakfast, he began reflecting aloud on the current state of the world and the events yet to unfold. He recalled the prince's early engagement to Anastasia. Explaining further, he revealed that his motivation came from his older sister. Alan caught sight of Anastasia, the girl whose fate he intended to change. She traveled by carriage, unaware of the significance her presence held for Alan's mission. As their eyes met, he stood firm, determined to face the girl at the center of the tragedy to come. Tension built as the two silently acknowledged each other across the crowd. Carrying resolve in his steps, Alan turned away, silently vowing to rewrite her fate and the world's future. Alan reviewed the events of the game, predicting the steps needed to reverse Anastasia's fate and save the town. Although he denied any personal attachment, he admitted he couldn't bear to see her die. To others, she was the villain, but Alan saw Anastasia as a decent, misunderstood girl. She boldly confronted nobility, reminding them of their duty to the people and nation. The world dismissed her as bothersome, another reason Alan found the narrative unjust. Alan reflected on the grim future Anastasia would face. Later he ran into Monica, a cheerful and energetic woman who greeted him warmly in the streets. They exchanged a few quick words as she teased him about his errands. With laughter, she warned him not to end up like the unruly guild men who often caused trouble. To Alan, Monica was a force of nature. She worked at the guild pub and always seemed to pull him along. Alan stopped Monica outside the guild building, asking for a favor with quiet urgency. Inside, he reassured his mother, standing by her with a nervous smile in an unfamiliar place. Veteran adventurers eyed the boy curiously, questioning his intentions at their table, despite his fear. Alan knew this was the beginning of his plan. Inside the Adventurers Guild, Alan stood firm as seasoned fighters paused to scrutinize the unfamiliar boy. Concern etched the woman's face beside him while the guild leader leaned in, curious about the boy's hesitation. Alan made his offer a simple task, asking only to remove mud from a ditch. The man burst into laughter and granted him permission with enthusiastic approval. Documents were quickly prepared, and the guild initiated the formal process to register Alan's unexpected request. As the woman prepared to sign, Alan was summoned to the table, his expression alert and cautious. Presented with a dark guild card, he listened, as the staff requested a drop of his blood. A gentle explanation followed, easing the woman's nerves while Alan observed in silence. Flinching from the sting, he watched a small bead form at his fingertip. The card reacted instantly, glowing with energy as his blood activated its magic. Alan received his guild card, the process now complete. Suddenly a woman welcomed him with a tight embrace. catching him off guard as he stumbled slightly. Warm congratulations surrounded him. Monica expressed her joy, treating him like family. Tears shimmered in gentle eyes as Alan was encouraged to take things at his own pace. Stepping into the street, he carried firm resolve, determined to confirm this world and earn the money he needed. Alan reviewed his goals: saving the town, and the Villainess meant overturning the game's scenario and facing the Crown Prince one day. Although burdened by poverty, he threw himself into work, determined to earn every coin needed for academy tuition. A new offer came: labor in the underground sewer, hazardous but rewarding. Without hesitation, Alan accepted, energized by purpose. He entered the dark tunnels, driven not by money but by hidden objectives. Deep within the sewers, Alan searched for a hidden scroll, rumored to appear years later in the game. The air reeked, but the layout matched what he remembered, confirming this world mirrored the game's events. He located a dented wall with a marked brick, just as described in the scenario. With determination, he activated the mechanism and stepped through a glowing entrance. Inside the mysterious chamber, Alan began his search for the legendary scroll. Inside the chamber, Alan discovered an ornate banner concealing a hidden compartment in the wall. Suspicious, he hesitated before reaching for the scroll, wary of traps despite its untouched appearance. As he stretched to grab it, the mechanism snapped, startling him. His assumption had been wrong. Unfurling the scroll, he grinned wide. The word concealment marked it as the skill he needed. Recalling the game, Alan watched the scroll glow, just as it once had for Amy. Alan smiled as the scroll vanished. He was certain the skill had transferred successfully. With a few swipes of his guild card, a glowing interface confirmed it. Concealment now belonged to him. The result left no doubt. This world perfectly matched the one from the game. Still, he knew that without action, the same ruinous future would unfold. After a long shift, his exhausted team reminded him to bathe his mother, wouldn't forgive sewer stench at home. Alan was dragged into a playful race to the bath, unaware of what awaited him. Inside the tent, he stumbled upon an unexpected and awkward sight. Too late to turn back, Alan ran headlong into an even more embarrassing moment. Realizing his mistake, he tried to retreat, only to hear his name shouted in alarm. Monica, ever responsible, insisted on helping him bathe, much to Alan's overwhelmed confusion. Chaos erupted when Monica, still in high spirits, startled Alan mid-sentence, sending him into a panicked scream. The commotion ended with Alan collapsed, his pride bruised, as onlookers debated his lack of clothing with dry humor. That evening he tested the concealment skill at home, attempting to vanish from view before his mother returned. Her casual scolding proved the magic hadn't worked as well as hoped. Alan smiled sheepishly, realizing his invisibility experiment still needed refinement. After handing over his modest earnings, Alan shared dinner quietly with his mother, who urged him to take care of himself. She reminded him to focus on school, and Alan, already planning ahead, nodded in agreement. With the concealment skill acquired, his next target was clear: he needed appraisal to reshape the future. But the scroll's location was heavily guarded by dangerous creatures, lurking in the shadows. Determined, Alan steeled himself. He would risk everything for the path forward. In the wilderness, Alan sighed as a horned rabbit stared blankly. His search had yielded little so far. He found no signs of the ruins and opted to conceal himself just in case. Navigating with only vague directions, he decided to return before nightfall, uncertain of his surroundings. Thanks to his skill, he slipped past guards unnoticed, blending in like a local. Back in town, doubt crept in. 2 days, no ruins, and growing uncertainty. Alan stumbled upon 2 horned rabbits mid-scuffle, or something close to it, shaking his head and moving on. By the 4th day, fatigue caught up with him. He brushed off concern at home, hiding his weariness. On the 5th day, his search finally bore fruit. He stood before the ruins at last. Relief washed over him, knowing his effort hadn't been in vain. Still, urgency returned. The scroll had to be found before anything went wrong. Alan crouched behind a fallen stone, startled by an unexpected noise echoing from the ruins. To his shock, goblins emerged from the shadows. Panic set in. This wasn't in the game, catching Alan off guard with their overwhelming numbers. From a hidden vantage point, he assessed the danger, knowing concealment was the only thing keeping him alive. The presence of the scroll of appraisal came to mind, its retrieval, now more urgent than ever. Steadying his breath, Alan dismissed the idea of retreat, aware hesitation would cost him everything. With renewed determination, he advanced, placing his faith in the power of Otami game skills. Alan descended the stone steps, entering the underground layers with cautious determination. The passage ahead glowed gently, illuminated by moss clinging to the cave walls. Reaching out to the glowing surface, he took a moment to admire the serene light around him. Despite the cramped space, he pressed forward, silently hoping no more goblins lurked below. Soon, he found the hidden chamber. The scroll of appraisal was finally within reach. To Alan's shock, the chamber held not just the scroll, but piles of loot never seen in the game. A sudden movement startled him. A goblin guard appeared, catching him completely off guard. He hid quickly, realizing the room served as a treasure vault for the goblins. One of them drew near, sniffing suspiciously, his presence uncomfortably close. The stench overwhelmed Alan, but he struggled to stay silent and unnoticed. A sudden blow distracted the goblin, giving Alan the moment he needed to escape detection. He collapsed nearby, exhausted but relieved to have made it through unnoticed. Reflecting on the situation, Alan realized the events in the ruins were diverging from the game's script. While some changes were troubling, the scroll was still buried in its hidden spot. Using the map's clue, he retrieved it safe from goblins, thanks to clever concealment. Alan let the goblins pass, his heart pounding as he stayed hidden just inches away. After safely reaching the surface, he looked back at the city, relieved to have returned unharmed. In secret, he prepared to use the scroll, aware that discovery would bring trouble. The skill was successfully acquired. Concealment, appraisal, now part of his arsenal. With renewed determination, Alan resumed his daily life, already planning his next move. 2 weeks later, Alan noticed an unusual buzz among the others as he arrived in the courtyard. He approached the instructor for answers, sensing something serious had occurred. The man explained they'd discovered a goblin nest in a distant labyrinth and planned to strike. Alan silently affirmed his choice. Securing the scroll earlier had been the right call. Yet, as scenarios shifted, he wondered if the game's script was already unraveling. Alan asked if the instructor would join the strike, only to hear him politely refuse. Surprised, Alan questioned his decision, noting how capable he still appeared. With a grin, the man revealed a prosthetic leg, his adventuring days behind him. He explained, an orc's poisoned arrow had ended his active career. Though the prosthetic functioned well, combat had become difficult. Now he focused on teaching and simple routines. The instructor smiled warmly, offering to teach Alan sword basics once he was ready. Soon after, the team began planning their route to the ruins. Maps spread out across the table. Watching quietly, Alan admired the man's leadership, despite his retired status. Later, while working, Alan set his sights on a new goal: learning alchemy. On his day off, he prepared to head into town, quietly advancing his plans alone. Alan walked through the market, thinking about the steep cost of the alchemy scroll, 15 million cents. Surrounded by merchants, he pondered how to earn enough money to reach that goal. He realized his appraisal skill could help identify valuable items hidden among common goods. A rare earring worth 300,000 cents caught his attention almost immediately. Curious, Alan approached the vendor, asking about the earring's details and value. Alan inquired about the earring's origin and decided to buy it after hearing its backstory. He paid using his guild card, confirming the purchase at a surprisingly low price. Despite the vendor's teasing about romance, Alan remained focused on his goal. He calculated the profit. Buying low and selling high could become a valuable side strategy. With a determined smile, Alan resolved to continue working hard and saving steadily. Alan presented the earring and gloves to the instructor, asking for an expert opinion before selling. The man examined them briefly, already intrigued, and offered to call a specialist. The expert confirmed the item's identities: earring of strength and rare fireproof gloves. He warned Alan about the risks of open selling, but offered a fair guild purchase instead. Grateful, Alan agreed, reminded to stay grounded and not let luck turn into greed. Alan made one final request: he wanted to learn how to wield a sword. Training began, but his form was quickly corrected with loud, sharp commands. Drenched in sweat, he pushed through each swing, eager to improve under his mentor's guidance. The instructor emphasized that power alone meant nothing without skill and understanding. He reminded Alan, mastery comes not from the weapon, but from the one who learns to use it. Alan acknowledged the instructor's warning: relying only on cheat skills could cost him everything. With renewed resolve, he was ordered to run 100 laps to build his strength. Despite exhaustion, he kept moving, knowing each step brought him closer to his goal. He collapsed, barely able to breathe, but knew tomorrow's training would be just as tough. In that moment, Alan swore he wouldn't lose. He had too much to protect. Alan continued balancing sword training, manual labor, and appraisal-based earnings, steadily working toward his goal. Now 11, he had saved over 15 million cents, enough to take the next decisive step. Alan prepares to leave, prompting his mother to ask if he's going out. Calmly replies he's heading to the market, dressed with purpose, showing maturity that surprises his mother. After 2 years of study and rigorous training, Alan finally achieves his savings goal through determination. He enters a dangerous district, heading toward a store hidden in the shadows of the royal capital. Cautiously, he descends the alley stairs, planning to stay unnoticed and avoid unnecessary confrontation. Alan found the hidden rule store and disabled his concealment before knocking on the door. He inspected the glowing message board and identified the day's password using his appraisal skill. After confirming the phrase, he repeated it with precision, prompting the lock to disengage. Inside, a cloaked shopkeeper greeted him with a cryptic smile, asking his intent, requested the scroll of alchemy, prepared to negotiate for the steep price offered. Alan hesitated as the shopkeeper asked for a moment, his gaze briefly caught by a strange skeletal display. The scroll was finally presented, along with a bonus goblin magic stones, as Alan readied his appraisal. To his surprise, the scroll was revealed to be a cheap imitation worth far less than claimed. He challenged the deception directly, demanding honesty, which earned him the shopkeeper's approval. Acknowledging Alan's sharpness, the man prepared to show him the real deal. Alan confirmed the scroll's authenticity this time and offered to pay with his guild card. Upon activating the scroll, the alchemy skill was successfully added to his list of abilities. While the shopkeeper cackled with amusement, Alan quietly vowed never to return again. Back home, he was greeted by his mother's scolding for arriving so late. As she reminded him about tomorrow, Alan promised to rest early for the big day. The night before the exam, Alan reviewed notes in bed, aware he'd be graduating early at age 11. In the capital, free schools were common, though many skipped middle school altogether. Alan's class studied etiquette, history, and noble crests. As the teacher called him, he followed her to the exam hall. She praised his rare achievement, while Alan promised to give his best. At her signal, the final exam began, timed and intense. Alan breezed through the memorization section, confident in facts he barely connected to real people. Geography proved slightly challenging, leaving him unsure about production stats across regions. He raised his hand and informed the teacher he was finished with the exam. Though only an hour had passed, he insisted on submitting his paper. The teacher panicked at his speed, but Alan remained relaxed, certain of his answers. As Alan exited the room, the teacher told him the results would be announced in a week. 7 days later, she rushed in breathlessly, shouting the outcome with excitement. He had achieved perfect marks in every subject, a feat unheard of for someone his age. Praising his brilliance, the teacher grew emotional, while Alan awkwardly asked her to calm down. Embarrassed, she apologized, and Alan sheepishly admitted to using a few reincarnation advantages. Offered a recommendation for high school, Alan proudly accepted, knowing he had earned it. Despite his excitement, the teacher reminded him he'd still have to wait until age 15. She explained how the system allowed for accelerated learning but wasn't built for such leaps. Alan expressed gratitude as the teacher congratulated him on his early graduation. Surrounded by classmates, Alan admitted his success came from effort and a little reincarnation help. Under a quiet sky, Alan reflected on his middle school graduation. His mother served a modest meal, apologizing for their poverty, but Alan appreciated her presence more than the food. Surprising him, she offered a dismantling knife wrapped in leather. She explained it was a gift to celebrate his graduation and coming of age. Moved, Alan realized the sacrifice behind it, treasuring the knife as her heartfelt support. Tears welled in Alan's eyes, surprising even himself. As his mother comforted him gently, she embraced him, expressing her hopes for his happiness, and reminding him not to overwork himself. Alan promised to cherish the knife she gave him, calling it his treasure. Though she couldn't afford his schooling, he vowed to save up for high school. With quiet strength, he promised to protect her, determined to do everything right. At 12, Alan became an official F-rank adventurer and gained early high school exam eligibility. Suddenly, someone hugged him tightly in excitement, catching him off guard. Monica, beaming with pride, announced his new rank to the entire tavern. While others joked and teased him, Alan insisted he not be treated like a child. A senior reminded him to stay focused. He was good, but still had much to learn. Despite lacking a warrior's divine protection, Alan earned praise for his performance and dedication. Divine protections, blessings from gods, enhanced abilities, or granted special powers in this world. Heroes like the Crown Prince and Amy had powerful protections, while others still stood out with training. Alan lacked such blessings, but pushed himself to overcome this disadvantage through relentless effort. Having built points from years of cleaning, he was one mission away from promotion to E rank. Alan learned his promotion task involved herb collection and hunting horned rabbits, both seemingly simple. He agreed to begin the next day, though warned not to underestimate the creatures. 2 days later, he returned with herbs and magic stones, successfully completing the mission. Thanks to his game knowledge, Alan located the herbs easily in ruins cleared of goblins. Preparing to face the rabbits, he activated his concealment skill and drew his weapon. Alan approached the grazing horned rabbits, blade in hand, preparing to strike. Though they looked harmless, he reminded himself they were destructive pests and apologized quietly. Back at the guild he was praised and promoted to E rank with a proud smile. That night, he used the knife his mother gave him to dress the rabbits, grateful. With his new rank, Alan gained the right to travel freely and take longer missions. Alan learned there was only one divine protection available to a villager, hidden deep within the Valley of the Flying Dragon. This divine gift enhanced wind thread magic, crucial for passing the high school's practical exams. With his dismantling knife in hand, Alan declared his next journey ready to face the valley's trial. A furious dragon roared in grief, blaming Amy and her companion for her mate's death. As the dragon lunged, Amy stumbled back, narrowly avoiding the strike. Her partner yelled for her to retreat. He cast a powerful barrier spell, halting the assault and shaking the ground with its impact. Amid the rubble, the two questioned if the threat was truly over. But the dragon's shadow loomed again, proving it was not. Carl stepped forward, shielding Amy and delivering the final blow. Amy wept over the fallen wyvern's child. Carl tried to comfort her. Rewards were granted, but the cost was heavy. Later, Alan rode a cart, tiredly reflecting. The battle had been scripted, part of the game's quest line. He pondered the Wyvern Lord's pain, recognizing the cruelty from its view, an uninvited invasion. As he parted ways, he warned others. The real journey was just beginning. Alan arrived in Friesen, preparing for the long journey through the mountains toward the Dragon Valley. Intent on avoiding conflict, he activated concealment magic to slip past the demons, said to lurk in the region. Exhausted from the climb, he realized he'd underestimated the trek overhead. A dragon suddenly soared past. As he reached the ridge, the breathtaking sight of flying dragons filled the sky before him. He recalled the key difference: dragons breathe fire, unlike lesser wyverns. Alan scouted a clearing, deciding it was the best place to set up camp before sunset. Using alchemy, he swiftly shaped the ground, creating a foundation for his shelter. He refined the design, adding air holes and a chimney. The skill, once used only for crafting, showed new utility. With mastery, alchemy could forge fortresses or magical tools for final battles. Finished his semi-basement camp, built from years of dedication and skill. Alan whispered goodnight, clutching his blade under the stars as smoke rose from his newly built camp at dawn. He restored the area and set out with renewed focus. His goal was the Temple of the Wind. Using concealment, he advanced confidently, avoiding the aggressive wyverns that once posed a constant threat. Soon he reached the ancient stairs that led to the temple. Just as he began climbing, something unexpected caught his attention. Inside the temple, a black wyvern lord lay curled beneath the pillars, a father from the slain family. It appeared to be sleeping. Quiet steps moved closer, aiming to retrieve the sacred book unnoticed. A sudden voice halted everything. Paralysis struck just as a glowing man emerged from the air. The man, calm and smiling, already knew the goal. Without hesitation, he presented the Book of the Wind God, confirming its purpose with certainty. A calm smile formed as the man revealed himself to be the Wind God, casually reading thoughts and bypassing concealment. Confused and overwhelmed, the boy asked what a god could possibly want. The answer: wake the sleeping dragon. Without hesitation, a powerful strike launched the wyvern into the sky. The divine figure floated beside it, waiting. Moments later, the beast returned fully awake. With one eye open, the wyvern was introduced as an unexpected ally. Jerome nervously introduced himself. Voice shaky, he admitted to being a wyvern lord more or less. A brief wave followed. Alan introduced himself, unsure how to respond to the situation. With gentle coaxing, Jerome extended a claw. A handshake sealed the awkward but honest greeting. The wind god smiled. A strange request followed. He wanted help finding Jerome a wife. Apparently, the love-struck wyvern had fallen for Melissa, a rare sky dragon hybrid. A divine offer was made: help the wyvern's love succeed, and divine protection would follow. Confusion set in. Lizard romance was foreign territory, yet the wind god showed no concern. Despite hesitation, questions began. Jerome flustered easily, but cooperation grew. A vision of Melissa appeared, graceful, proud, and unforgettable in Jerome's eyes. Recognition struck. That ribbon matched the game's boss, the final challenge, guarding the Book of the Wind God. Nervously, Jerome praised Melissa's charm and beauty, recalling the happiness he once had. Questions followed: her hobbies, interests, but Jerome had never spoken to her. Realization sank in. Admiration from afar wasn't love. He was just a stranger. A plan to start with greetings took shape. Behind a tree, he trembled. Sweat poured as he tried to speak. Step-by-step advice echoed in his mind. All he had to do was introduce himself. Melissa's sharp glare froze him. Questions cut through. Who was he? And what did he want? Crushed by her cold stare. He wilted. Wings dropped. Pride shattered. A gift was the backup plan. Alan suggested meet. Jerome agreed. Seemed reasonable for wyverns. While they waited, the wind god floated casually. Jerome's delay raised concern, but faith in his skills remained. Moments later, he returned. Exhausted but triumphant, he presented the prey in his claws, with the meat offering behind them. Alan suggested a new angle appearance. Fashion might work where words failed. Determined not to give up, Jerome took off, eager for the next plan. A dramatic floral entrance was attempted. Melissa reacted with terror, not flattery. Slumped on the ground, Jerome reconsidered. Maybe flashy wasn't effective after all. Alan proposed a new idea: dress well, not loud. A suit symbolized trust for humans, at least. An idea formed: if suits gained trust, maybe a necktie alone would help. Alan considered crafting one himself. At the center of a drawn circle, he began shaping it using magic. Jerome watched, puzzled but intrigued. Alchemy flared to life. A glow surged as components fused through the activated magic circle. The result shimmered into view. A perfect, crisp necktie appeared on Jerome's chest. Grinning proudly, he thanked Alan. The effort paid off. He finally felt ready. Jerome beamed with gratitude and rushed to show off his new look. In the center of the crowd, Melissa stood surrounded. He shouted her name with urgency. Realizing he didn't know her location, he relied on divine help and launched into flight. Tears welled up as he spotted her. Determination filled his heart. Soaring through the sky, Alan and his ally approach a tense battlefield. Amid the confusion, the lizard warriors hesitate, unsure how to respond to the unexpected situation. Without warning, a violent impact shatters the standoff as two powerful forces collide midair. Crashing to the ground, Alan disrupts the enemy formation, catching them off guard. With fierce determination, a lone warrior shields Melissa, unleashing a defiant roar at the approaching threat. Several enemies close in, surrounding the fallen warrior as he struggles to hold them back. Despite his injuries, he urges Melissa to escape, standing protectively between her and danger. With urgency in her eyes, Melissa leaps into the air, flying away from the battlefield. Behind her, the brave warrior intercepts a strike, refusing to let anyone reach her. Summoning his strength, he unleashes a powerful counterattack, sending enemies crashing in every direction. Melissa is suddenly seized mid-flight, dragged back by a determined pursuer reaching out with force. Far above the cliffs, a chaotic chase unfolds as multiple figures scatter across the sky. Down below, Alan and his companion react to the approaching threat, startled by the aerial scene. Without hesitation, the god intervenes midair, disrupting the enemy's path with a burst of wind, trying to explain the situation. Alan introduces themselves as friends, though confusion still lingers. Reassured by his companion, Melissa learns the warrior fought bravely to protect her. Midair, the exhausted fighter loses control and begins spiraling downward toward the cliffs below. A loud crash follows as his body hits the rocky ground, stirring a cloud of dust. Melissa, caught beneath him, winces in pain as they both struggle to recover. Flustered and embarrassed, he scrambles off her, apologizing with frantic urgency. Melissa, still flustered, expresses her gratitude to Jerome for saving her, addressing him gently. Without hesitation, she leans forward and kisses his cheek, calling him cool with sincere admiration. From a distance, Alan watches their moment unfold, realizing his mission is now complete. A divine voice reaches out, promising Alan the reward he was promised for his efforts. Touched by the gesture, Alan receives the wind god's blessing, watched by those he helped unite. The wind god teases Jerome and Melissa about marriage, promising his blessing when the time comes. At the altar, Alan discovers the wind god's book is missing. Realizing the divine plan has shifted, he reflects quietly, knowing his actions have altered the course of the original story. Grateful, Jerome thanks Alan, though Alan humbly deflects the praise to others. With a serious tone, Alan warns Jerome to avoid the area for 4 years due to a potential threat. Melissa surprises everyone by calling Jerome Jerry, showing how close they've become already. She promises that if Alan ever needs help, she and Jerome will return the favor no matter what. Alan smiles, encouraging Jerome to cherish Melissa and make their bond last. Touched, the pair thank Alan sincerely, though Jerome still struggles to process it all. With a final farewell, the couple flies off to find their love nest, leaving Alan behind with a quiet smile. Alan watches the wyverns fly away, amused that he ended up helping them instead of humans. Before returning to Rurden, he recalls there is still one goal he wants to pursue in Friesen Village. With excitement, he decides to build a glider to achieve faster transportation. He reflects on how limited travel is in this world, relying only on horse-drawn carts. Imagining the sky, he dreams of revolutionizing movement with flight. With a new goal in mind, Alan commits to building a motor glider powered by wind magic. His plan is nearly complete. Drawn from memories of his past life as an aeronautical engineer, he scouts a large, flat field and prepares it as a makeshift runway. Using newly acquired magic, Alan clears the land with a powerful wind-based spell. Despite progress, he finds the act of chanting spells slightly embarrassing, though the magic flows naturally. Alan's stats improve with the wind god's blessing, unexpectedly granting him wind magic and boosting his power. Grateful yet amused, he uses his magic to clear grass with ease, calling the god creepy. With the field ready, he shifts focus to preparing the glider for test flights. Through alchemy, he efficiently constructs both glider and runway using detailed magical diagrams. Materials from defeated wyverns, along with charcoal, enhance his crafting efficiency as preparations near completion. With a steady hand, Alan casts the smelting spell, igniting the materials in a controlled burst of energy. The result is a sleek, fully formed glider, his efforts rewarded with visible success and satisfaction. Standing beside his creation, he evaluates the weather and prepares for test flights on the ready runway. Inside the cockpit, Alan powers the engine using wind magic channeled through a magic stone. He confirms the controls, ensuring both rudder and wings respond smoothly to his adjustments. Alan channels wind magic into the glider, carefully increasing its power to avoid instability. He struggles to balance the output but refuses to stop the launch sequence. With rising speed and determination, Alan finally achieves liftoff and soars skyward. Alan launched his glider into the sky. A grin spread across his face as it soared successfully over the valley. He scanned the landscape below and adjusted the direction, following the route toward Werden. The village passed beneath him, the buildings and roads clear from above, as he maintained steady flight. A brief thought of forgotten chores surfaced, but the thrill of flying after so long overpowered it. Her eyes widened as she spotted Alan soaring above the trees, while enjoying tea in the garden. Anastasia paused, raising her finger toward the sky. Margaret turned her head, curious. A mysterious shape glided silently above the forest, its wings still but steady. Anastasia suggested it could be a wyvern, and calmly decided it should be reported to the castle. Meanwhile, Alan soared confidently above the clouds, the capital's skyline finally appearing on the horizon. What once took days by carriage, he now completed in mere hours. From above, Alan surveyed the royal capital. No rivers or open fields offered a clear landing spot. Weighing his options, he considered the dangers of crashing into a meadow until a shimmering lake came into view. With urgency in his grip, he braced himself and committed to the descent. His plan was precise: approach the lake's edge and slow down just before touching the water. Alan steadied the glider, pushing forward into the final moment of landing. As the glider neared the surface, Alan summoned wind magic to slow the descent, directing a powerful reverse thrust. A rush of wind tore through the lake's edge. As the craft cut through the air in a final desperate approach, the glider slammed into the water, splashing wildly. Moments later, Alan surfaced, gasping for breath as debris floated nearby. Exhausted but safe, he sat beneath a tree, relieved his vital belongings had survived the crash. Alan watched the shattered remains of his glider dissolve in the lake, a quiet realization dawning. Despite the success of his flight, he counted the cost-precious wyvern materials gone with a single crash. At the guild, drenched and weary, Alan ran into familiar faces and offered a half-hearted excuse for his soaked clothes. Rudolph greeted him warmly, though his lecture came sharp and unexpected, mistaking him for the cause, while Alan tried to hold back a laugh, brushing off the teasing remarks about age and modesty from the guild members. Under the magical shower, he reflected on the comforts of this game world clean water. As he rinsed off, Alan planned his next steps: sell the items, change clothes, and return home. Later that evening, he recounted the journey over dinner, marking the end of his first expedition. Though his body rested in bed, something lingered, an unresolved feeling that the story wasn't quite over yet. Sitting by the canal, Alan mulled over his journey, acknowledging the missteps that marred his return from Friesen. Poor planning led to the glider's crash, no landing site, and no room for error. Reflecting further, he realized how much his child's body had dulled his judgment compared to his previous adult life. Clarity emerged from the water's stillness. He'd need constant self-awareness moving forward. Despite the failures, his design wasn't flawed, just the piloting. Lessons had been learned. Managing a glider with magic proved more complex than expected. At his desk, he sketched a new idea. A vertical takeoff and landing craft would eliminate the need for long runways. Multitasking remained impossible with his current limits. He'd need something extra. A rare item surfaced in his thoughts, one capable of simultaneous casting the scroll of multiple chanting. Though the scroll rested in a difficult location, he was determined. Preparations had to begin. With a commanding gesture, Alan activated his magic, shaping materials with precision for his next design. Before him stood a refined aircraft, sleek, compact and tailored. While not a VTOL, it was built for a single mission. Fingers tightened around the controls. As the glider began its run across the field, wheels lifted from the ground, speed surged, air bit against his flight suit. Eyes forward, focus sharp, he soared skyward, once more determined, prepared. Flight wasn't his only concern. True mastery required understanding the nature of alchemy. Precise blueprints defined the quality of what could be made. Vague ideas led to inefficient outcomes. Without strong magic, even brilliant designs lacked force. Amy succeeded due to her protagonist-level powers. He had no such luxury. Material cost was another wall. Without enough resources, even basic crafting was nearly impossible. Thankfully, substitutions were possible. Rare wyvern parts could be swapped with cheaper alternatives. Alan spotted a towering structure rising into the sky, the legendary Tower of the Sage ahead. A small aircraft approached the towering structure, piercing the clouds, known as the Sage's Tower. It stretched over 300 floors into the sky. To reach the summit, the pilot had to ascend in spirals, navigating each loop with precision. Flying above the stratus clouds, he calculated his altitude near 2,000 meters. Near the top, no resistance came from the tower as he closed in. He prepared to reach the highest floor of the Sage's Tower. With urgency, he dismantled the wind magic engine midair and launched himself from the aircraft. Descending freely, he drifted above the tower while preparing to summon magic through his focused mana. A burst of energy activated the parachute, stabilizing his fall as wind magic surged. His timing precise. The impact hit the tower's top section in a controlled explosion. He landed safely and quickly began storing away his deployed gear. Swinging from a rope, he steadied himself against the tower's outer wall, catching his breath midair. Inside the breach, he collapsed on the floor, exhausted, but reassured that everything proceeded as intended. Declaring the mission a triumph, he acknowledged how his aerial infiltration bypassed all expected threats. He uncovered a sealed scroll within the chamber, its glow confirming its value. With a single gesture, the skill was absorbed, another step toward his ultimate goal. As the tower began repairing itself, he realized time was short and escape was urgent. High above the clouds, he reflected on the risk just taken to gain a powerful skill. A legend told of a sage who cast spells without chanting, using magic to help others. Though the sage died tragically, his soul became the chantless scroll, hidden in a mystical forest. Now, his next destination was clear: reach the Forest of Illusion and retrieve the final scroll. Navigating by a dated guild map, he tried estimating his location near the Forest of Illusion. Uncertainty loomed as he drifted off course, worried about landing before nightfall. Strong demons lurked below, and he knew his strength was limited. Caution was crucial. As the sun dipped low, he finally spotted the village nestled between the trees. Relieved, he aimed for the drop point just outside the village to safely descend. He engaged the vertical engine, initiating a controlled descent toward the clearing below. Altitude control systems on both wings stabilized the craft for a precise landing. Touching down gently, he stepped out, exhausted but relieved the flight had ended safely. Though tired, he prepared to conceal the aircraft with magic before entering the village. Before he could proceed, armed villagers surrounded him, ordering him to stay still. Caught off guard, Alan froze as tension filled the air and weapons aimed at him. Brought before the village elders, he confirmed his identity as a human named Alan. The lead elf questioned his presence, demanding a reason for entering the village. Alan explained he got lost, but one elf accused him of deception. Before judgment was passed, the elder reminded all of the spirits protecting their home. The elf queen questioned how Alan, a human, escaped the forest's limits. Doubt filled the room as no one sensed magical power strong enough to justify flight. Alan cautiously revealed he was protected by the wind god, though he preferred to stay discreet. Surprised by his answer, the elves lowered their weapons, murmuring about divine protection. Moved, the queen praised the gods, while Alan remained unsure of what he had just started. Now seen as a divine figure, Alan was respectfully asked by the queen to save their village. Confused, he wondered if a new game event had unexpectedly begun. The queen explained that an evil spirit was slowly drawing nearer to their home, immune to their efforts. Alan, unaware of the event, tried to understand the threat through calm questioning. She described how the spirit harassed both the elves and their guardian spirits relentlessly. Alan learned the spirit hadn't harmed anyone yet, but its approach threatened the village's future. Despite hesitation, the elves pleaded for his help. believing in his divine protection. Suddenly, the elf princess Sherry barged in, vowing to defeat the spirit herself without human aid. Before the argument escalated, a villager rushed in to report the spirit's sudden appearance. Sherry sprinted off, demanding the location, while others struggled to keep her in check. With the queen's plea in mind, Alan decided to follow the princess into the chaos. Shouts rang through the village as guards mobilized. The evil spirit had appeared in the square. A robed figure wandered aimlessly, drawing fearful stares from villagers and soldiers alike. Alan questioned the label, sensing something odd about the supposed threat's vacant behavior. Confused, he realized he saw a man, while the elves described a black fog instead. Alan admitted he only saw a cloaked man, prompting the queen to grant him spirit vision. With enhanced sight, he now witnessed the figure harassing panicked spirits, confirming the threat. Sherry drew her bow, declaring she would destroy the spirit without hesitation. He tried to stop her, uncertain whether the man deserved death. Hero veered off target, and frustration mounted as confusion over the spirit's identity deepened. The queen turned to Alan with urgency as the robed figure continued moving ominously through the village. Alan stared at the cloaked man's hollow expression, unable to identify what he truly was. A strange hooded man appeared in front of a crowd, casting light into the sky. Unsure of the man's intentions, Alan cautiously tried to speak to him and calm the situation. Suddenly the man shouted his frustrations, drawing attention with an outburst of personal disclosure. He continued ranting, trying to justify himself with his name and background. Alan, disturbed, suspected the man was chasing a girl, and sensed possible criminal behavior. The robed man excitedly claimed he sought an ancient spirit dwelling in the elf village. With unsettling enthusiasm, he explained the spirit looked like a child despite her age, alarming Alan. Meanwhile, the elves misunderstood the scene, thinking Alan was interacting with a dangerous entity. A confrontation erupted as accusations flew, with the man defensively insisting on his innocence. Alan, growing frustrated, scolded him for frightening the spirit, and ordered him to stop chasing her. Hooded man gasped in disbelief upon realizing his presence was frightening the spirits. Despite being told to leave, he stubbornly insisted on entering the elf village, claiming it was essential. He revealed his goal, meeting the elf queen to obtain a key ingredient for creating an elixir. Alan pulled him back, pointing out the queen already stood before them. The elves, however, remained suspicious, convinced he was an evil spirit due to his questionable intentions. Alan asked the man if he would leave the village in exchange for the ingredients he needed. With approval from the elf queen, Alan formally agreed to hear the man's request. The strange man reiterated he needed a spirit tree petal and honey, promising to go afterward. Responding swiftly, the elves gathered the ingredients as instructed by their queen. Upon tasting the mixture, the man confirmed its quality, prompting Alan to remind him of his promise. Grateful beyond words, the robed man promised Alan he would never forget the kindness shown. Meanwhile, the elves celebrated Alan, praising him as a divine figure sent by the gods. Among them, a Sundaware elf reluctantly acknowledged Alan's efforts, though tried to mask her approval. The villagers invited Alan to stay for the night, offering him a place to rest. Later, he soaked in the hot spring, surprised by the unexpected luxury of the elf village. Alan began to reflect, realizing he hadn't anticipated everything that occurred during the day. Unexpectedly, a muscular elf entered the bath and offered to wash Alan's back, catching him off guard. As the situation escalated awkwardly, Alan nervously declined. Questioning the randomness of this Otomike event, noise from outside interrupted the moment, drawing attention from others in the village. The elf queen joyfully announced the birth of the spirit of light, leaving Alan astonished once more. Children watched in wonder as glowing spirits danced through the air, one identified as the spirit of light. The elf queen marveled at the phenomenon, noting it hadn't occurred in 800 years. Alan, recalling game knowledge, grew suspicious this event didn't match the original story timeline. Suddenly, the spirit approached Alan, joyfully recognizing him as her savior from the day before. She revealed that, thanks to the elixir, she had ascended and become a spirit herself. Alan was shocked to realize the spirit was the same eccentric man from the day before. Now transformed, the spirit declared she truly understood what it meant to be a young girl. She revealed her new name, Lou, and that she had made a contract with Millie. The elf queen joyfully accepted the news and congratulated Millie on the unexpected bond. Alan, confused by the deviation from the game's events, decided it was no longer his concern. The spirit Lou presented Alan with a scroll, offering it as a gift in gratitude. She explained, it was a powerful chantless scroll she had crafted after mastering her transformation. Originally meant for her daughter, she entrusted it to Alan, acknowledging his great help. Upon appraisal, Alan confirmed the scroll's authenticity. It could grant the rare chantless skill. Though grateful, Alan felt conflicted. Having received an incredible reward from such an odd source, Alan prepared to leave the elf village, thanking the queen and villagers for their cooperation. Nearby, the elf princess questioned the flying machine's ability, clearly skeptical of its function. Before his departure, the elf queen approached Alan with something in her hands. She presented a handmade amulet, a token of gratitude and a symbol of their bond. As final preparations were made, villagers stepped back cautiously, watching the aircraft come to life. The aircraft lifted off the ground with force, startling the gathered elves as it took flight. Alan shouted his thanks and farewell, promising to return while the villagers watched in awe. Ivrion looked skyward, their expressions a mix of surprise, admiration, and quiet farewell. From above, Lou waved goodbye, her voice carrying a promise of reunion as Alan departed. Back home, Alan reviewed his progress. Satisfied that Phase 1 of his mission was complete, Alan resolved to increase his strength, knowing power would be essential to win upcoming duels. Back at the guild, his companions offered encouragement, some teasing, others giving sincere warnings. One man, standing like a mentor, reminded Alan not to act recklessly and dishonor his mother. Suddenly, Monica rushed in, embracing Alan with overwhelming enthusiasm as others laughed and watched. Caught off guard, Alan struggled to push her back, embarrassed by her affectionate ambush. Monica warned Alan not to overwork himself, expressing concern for his safety. She quickly shifted tone, sending him off with an enthusiastic strike and encouragement. Later, Alan informed his mother about his mission and received a gentle embrace in return. Filled with resolve, he silently vowed to protect her from the events ahead. An old merchant presents a rare item, elf-made honey, his eyes gleaming with pride. Inside, a quiet shop, Alan negotiates a deal, offering 2 million for 3 jars, handing over payment. Alan requests more, knowing the supply is difficult to secure. He then asks about magic bags, hoping to find one with vast storage capacity. The merchant laughs, explaining such powerful items exist, but are nearly priceless and unseen. Alan agrees to return, amused by the merchant's eagerness and cryptic humor. Days later, he arrives in the village of Struzen, prepared to hunt goblins for a commission. The village chief greets him warmly, explaining how rare visitors have become in recent months. While calculating his expenses, Alan realizes the poor profit margin of exterminating goblins. Despite low rewards and dangerous risks, he resolves to face the threat head-on. At dawn, Alan steps into the forest near Struzen, confidently gripping his makeshift AK-47. Though crafted from cheap parts, the weapon mimics a Kalashnikov well enough for battle. Intent on training, he roams the woods where goblins emerge from a hidden labyrinth. Using concealment magic, he hides and prepares to shoot, keeping a careful distance. His shot lands, he watches the goblin collapse, uncertain if it was a clean hit. Cautiously, Alan approaches the fallen goblin, scanning for signs of life. He confirms one bullet struck the chest and retrieves the embedded magic stone. Relieved by his success, he grins, knowing his wind magic-powered rifle is effective. To avoid attracting demons, he disposes of the goblin's body in a smelting pit. Remembering his childhood fears, he reflects armed with this rifle. Even illusions feel conquerable. Alan reports his success, presenting 12 goblin magic stones to claim his reward. After verifying the kill count with his guild card, the chief confirms the payment. He chooses to remain in the village for a while, eating, resting, and preparing. Before leaving, Alan confirms his next goal, entering the labyrinth directly. A week of fruitless hunting convinces him it's time to face the dungeon ahead. Alan stands before the ancient entrance, ready to confront the infamous goblin's labyrinth. Though the dungeon wasn't essential in the original game, he chooses to dive in anyway. Legends speak of a labyrinth core guarded by powerful bosses, though its existence is uncertain. With demons being both dangerous and valuable, complete destruction isn't always the goal. Lantern in hand, he descends into the dark, excited by the tools at his side. Inside the labyrinth, Alan notes it isn't densely packed, but the goblin encounters are steady. From the goblin's perspective, the dungeon's layout may seem like a maze of unknowns. Despite concealment, the lantern's glow betrays his presence, drawing attention. Goblins rush forward, only to be struck down by his rapid gunfire. Frustrated by the lack of stealth, Alan compares himself to a glowing, defenseless anglerfish. Alan navigates quickly, skipping unnecessary rooms, his memory of the labyrinth's layout guiding the way. He reaches the 5th floor, standing before the massive door to the boss chamber. With focus, he switches his ammunition from stealth to power rounds, readying for battle. Inside, hobgoblins and goblin mages await, defending the core chamber with hostility. At their center stands the towering threat, the Goblin King, armed and armored for war. Alan prioritizes the goblin mages, unleashing a barrage to eliminate the magical threat first. With 2 confirmed kills, he quickly reloads and readies for the next wave. He targets the hobgoblins next, using smokescreen magic and sneaking to re-enable concealment. Their bodies drop, leaving only the Goblin King who watches in silence. Alan opens fire, bullets striking the armored giant as it lets out a monstrous roar. The Goblin King charges with overwhelming strength, smashing the floor as Alan narrowly dodges. Cornered and out of options, Alan prepares a last-ditch smelted weapon from his pouch. He hurls the bomb toward the king, banking on the surprise impact. Smoke erupts violently, blinding the king and causing him to stagger in agony. Toxic fumes erupt from his armor. Gap's roar turns to choked screams of pain. Alan fires relentlessly, closing the distance to land a direct shot to the Goblin King's head. His improvised pepper bomb strategy worked just like in the game, blinding the enemy yet, despite critical damage, the monster refuses to die. Staggering with immense vitality, unable to pierce its skin, Alan chants Windcutter while gripping his blade tightly. With the battle over, he sighs, collecting the magic stones will be exhausting work. Alan approaches the glowing sphere resting deep within the dungeon. The core of the labyrinth, legends say that destroying it will bring the entire dungeon to an end. Raising his hand, he reaches out without hesitation, drawn by curiosity and duty. With a single touch, the space distorts, sending him back to the entrance, smiling with relief. He confirms it. This is how you conquer the Goblin's Labyrinth. Back in town, Alan receives praise from the villagers for conquering the labyrinth. Hearing he defeated 138 goblins, his mentor proudly congratulates him, a rare moment of praise. After a long day, Alan agrees to rest before turning in the magic stones. A cheerful woman welcomes him back with open arms and bold affection, but Alan has already slipped away, leaving her shouting in comedic frustration. With the labyrinth conquered, Alan walks through the city, his heart lighter than before. Now wealthier and stronger, he considers his next goal, but something personal comes first. He decides to tell his mother everything when he returns home. Smiling with resolve, he and his mother plan to start a new life elsewhere. Alan stepped through the door to the familiar scent of home, catching his mother mid-preparation. She froze briefly, then dropped everything to wrap him in a tight hug. Worry etched across her face as she inspected him for injuries. With a gentle smile, he assured her of his safety, casually mentioning the dangers he'd faced. Holding back tears, she confessed she'd been fine during his absence, though her trembling voice hinted otherwise. They exchanged stories, small, everyday moments that carried deep meaning. Even the mention of smelly clothes drew warm laughter. Watching her, Alan made a quiet vow. He wouldn't allow fate to steal her away from him. Over dinner, Alan's mother suggested he could stay and use his earnings as he pleased. She assured him he wasn't responsible for anyone else. Though the small apartment had many limitations, Alan considered the sacrifices needed for an adventurer's lifestyle. He still believed living apart wasn't right. His gaze shifted toward her as he explained his true wish. It wasn't just about space, he wanted her to live more comfortably. He imagined a home they could share, where she could handle the housework and stay close. Hearing this, she reached out gently, calling his name with emotion in her voice. Though she called him a fool, Alan's mother smiled warmly, agreeing to search for a new home together. His face lit up with quiet excitement. The next day, he brought her to the guild. Familiar faces greeted them, surprised yet pleased to see her there. She nervously introduced herself, unsure how much Alan had shared about her. Still, she tried her best to make a good impression. One guild member praised Alan's dedication, calling him their most promising newcomer. Hearing that others wanted him in their party, her eyes widened with pride and astonishment. Alan considered the advantages of ranking up to D, knowing it would free him from current limitations and open doors to bigger opportunities. As discussions shifted toward housing, he mentally weighed his future plans, brushing off party invitations until the right time. Concerned for safety, his mother voiced doubts about living near the guild. Alan acknowledged the risks but pressed for help finding a safer place. Just then, Monica arrived, surprised to learn Alan was preparing to move. Her presence changed the tone with familiarity and warmth. Alan proudly shared his intentions, now earning more. He wanted a larger place to live with his mother. Monica leaned in with a bold smile and offered Alan a surprising invitation to her house, catching him completely off guard. Both Alan and his mother reacted in confusion, unsure of what Monica truly meant by her offer. With a laugh, she clarified that her father managed an apartment building, and she could help them find a suitable place. The quoted rent was high, and Alan hesitated, doing mental math as his mother nervously asked for his thoughts. Despite the cost, he suggested they go see it, figuring it might actually be a rare, worthwhile bargain. Before heading out, Katerina expressed her desire to greet the guild members, thankful her son had been surrounded by kind people. Meanwhile, Alan awkwardly reacted to Monica's earlier offer, only to be teased again, flustering him as she playfully pressed the misunderstanding. Their group soon arrived at the building. Monica, now fully in guide mode, explained its convenient location and pointed to the available top-floor unit. Climbing the stairs, she noted the higher floor's unpopularity due to its steep access, though it worked fine for her. Inside, Alan stood in awe. The room was far larger than expected, and his mother wondered if it was too much for them. Alan explored the upper level of the unit, considering whether to claim the lofted space as his bedroom, while his mother doubted she could manage the climb. Looking out from the window, he was captivated by the clear view of the distant castle rising above the town. With determination in his eyes, he whispered to himself the goal was close, he just needed to push a little further. Katerina expressed surprise at the affordable rent, and Alan addressed Monica with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Monica smiled warmly, believing in his potential and calling it a worthwhile investment in someone with a bright future. Alan turned to his mother for confirmation. Seeing her uncertain, he confidently declared they'd take the room as long as she liked it too. Monica assured them it was fine, joking that Alan could repay her once he became a better man, prompting a smile from Katerina. Their house hunting journey came to a swift end. The very first property had everything they needed. Back at the guild, Alan reported their decision to stay under Monica's care, earning a nod of approval. His guildmates were pleased. Alan admitted it was far nicer than the home they had before. Alan's guildmates admired how far he'd come, surprised he was already providing a new home for his mother. When asked about moving out, he casually answered, starting now, prompting amused disbelief and support from those around him. One guild member raised his voice to rally the others, proudly announcing Alan's big step, moving out with his mom. Though Alan tried to object, the others insisted on helping, touched by his devotion. Banter filled the room, making it clear they cared deeply. Friendly jabs continued as the men argued over tasks, eager to lend a hand in their own chaotic way. Alan asked his mom what to do, overwhelmed by everyone's support. Monica gently reassured them, calling Alan like a son to the whole guild. Katerina reminded Alan to treasure such kindness, recognizing how fortunate he was to have such wonderful people around him. While guildmates bickered over who was too drunk to help, Alan smiled to himself. Their antics made him feel strangely warm inside. She wiped her tears, touched by their generosity. Alan stood by, a bit panicked at her emotional response. Later, the guild members helped move furniture into the new home, despite bumps, narrow spaces, and minor complaints. A line of guild members marched through town carrying furniture, drawing curious stares. Alan wiped his brow as the last load arrived. Inside, the space still felt roomy, despite being furnished. The simplicity of their old life made the move feel surprisingly light, with the job done. One guildmate raised a cheer and declared it was time for a banquet to celebrate. Katerina and Alan looked puzzled, but were told it was tradition. Any reason to drink was reason enough. Grateful, Katerina addressed the adventurers sincerely, thanking them for all their help that day. Katerina stood before the gathered guild, expressing heartfelt gratitude for their kindness and support toward her son, smiling proudly. Monica listened as thanks extended to everyone from the porters to those who helped them settle in. Her speech began to stretch, prompting Alan to quietly plead for brevity, while the others chuckled. Raising a glass, she toasted to their future, wishing everyone happiness and luck in their endeavors. Just before things dispersed, she turned to Alan and reminded him she was off to greet more guests, leaving him smiling beside her. Morning light filled the room as Katerina swept the floor. Nearby, Alan watched quietly, vowing to make their new life even better. His thoughts reached beyond just family. He wanted to protect this peaceful life for Monica, the guild, and everyone who had supported him. While others drank and laughed, Alan calmly sipped fruit juice, eyes set on one goal: breaking the fate that once seemed inevitable. Teasing quickly followed. The guild couldn't help but joke about his beautiful mother, sending him into flustered denial. Thankfully, Master Rudolph stepped in, silencing the crowd with a single firm command. With a fierce glare, Rudolph slammed his mug down, declaring he'd be the only one allowed to make a move. The rest were to back off. Katerina laughed politely. While others protested, Alan couldn't believe his mentor was joining the competition for his mother's affection. Jaw clenched, he withdrew his earlier approval, muttering that exceptions must be made, especially when it came to his master. Later, alone in the forest, he tested his equipment under peaceful skies, letting out a long breath. Careful observation showed good penetration. Still, he needed better rounds for the plan he had in mind. Steam rose from the tub as Alan soaked, muscles sore after days of preparation. Nearby, two rifles leaned against the wall, one full size, the other compact. He'd smelted FMJ rounds for both. As he relaxed, a teasing voice interrupted. Katerina joked about joining him, prompting a deadpan refusal. Soon after, a towering armored figure collapsed. Holes pierced through its helmet. The bullets had done their job. Enemies never seemed to stop, but this dungeon made for perfect grinding. He kept pushing through, week after week. With over 100 laps completed, Alan had gathered magic stones for the guild and strengthened his resolve even more. Alan handed over a beer in thanks while being advised to review his status. His efforts against goblins had started to draw attention. Upon checking, he discovered a new nickname, Goblin Slayer, earned from consistent extermination and rising experience as a novice adventurer. In the dense forest, a pair of massive boars marched forward, disturbing the peace with their heavy snorts and trampling hooves. A lone young man entered the forest with a rifle slung over his shoulder, cautious but determined. He paused briefly, noting that he was just outside the suburbs of Altmont, a region too close to leave such threats unchecked. The boars weren't just dangerous, they were resources. Their bodies mapped and labeled, were vital for meat and supplies. Sitting beside a downed creature, he reflected on the task ahead. Orcs emerged endlessly from a labyrinth deep within, and he had no choice but to confront it. Alan confirmed his earlier assumption: the hollow point bullets worked as intended. Every successful hunt not only provided materials, but also progressed his guild standing. These bullets, known for expanding on impact, were familiar to him from another life. Against stronger foes, he planned to rely on FMJ and Kalash rounds, while continuing to use smaller calibers for standard threats. He studied each type's role with care. As night fell, Alan reviewed his results. Tomorrow he would enter the Great Labyrinth fully prepared. Before resting, he enjoyed a rich dish of braised orc shank, savoring both victory and the spoils of his strategy. Alan gave thanks, but remained cautious about unfamiliar food. New worlds often carried unseen risks, even in their cuisine. Surprisingly, the orc meat exceeded expectations. Though rougher than pork, its flavor and texture held depth, especially around the skin and bones. The following morning, Alan gazed at the sky above the village. Thoughts of home surfaced. He hoped to share this place with his mother one day. Inside the labyrinth, he advanced using concealment tactics. Mid-bosses guarded each floor, but his methods proved effective. After battle, Alan harvested what he could. With limited space, he prioritized collecting magic stones already used to the routine of survival. At the heart of the labyrinth, the Orc King loomed, surrounded by all the mid-bosses Alan had fought before. Its presence radiated menace and reminded Alan of its savory meat. Without hesitation, Alan took aim. His plan was simple: eliminate isolated healers and support units quickly to weaken the formation. Targeted strikes landed with precision. Mages and priests fell, followed by a smoke-screen retreat. Even the orc general took significant damage during the push. Suddenly, the enemy responded fiercely. A sweeping counterattack forced Alan to dive for cover. The general unleashed a burst of magic beyond expectation, revealing hidden strength Alan hadn't anticipated. Alan assessed the battlefield. The Orc King's regeneration ability made things difficult, and its massive health pool demanded a strategy beyond brute force. Without wasting time, he launched another smokescreen. The same evasive tactics that had brought him this far would have to carry him forward again. The enemies anticipated his usual flanking maneuver and tightened into a defensive formation. He took a different angle and unleashed a blinding chili pepper extract, targeting their vision with practiced precision. Caught off guard, the orcs panicked. Confusion spread among their ranks as Alan prepared to press the advantage. The disoriented orcs collapsed in rapid succession. Alan remained calm behind cover, striking cleanly through the chaos with trained precision. Suddenly, the Orc King stirred. Glowing energy surged through its body, and Alan realized the beast was preparing to regenerate once more. He narrowed his eyes. The healing had already completed just as expected. Alan tightened his grip on the rifle, muttering in frustration. With a furious roar, the Orc King charged forward, shattering the floor beneath it. The air trembled with every step. Alan responded with steady fire. Bullets tore through the smoke, but his eyes widened. The king wasn't slowing down. The Orc King smashed through the debris in a violent rush, sending wood and stone flying across the chamber. Alan was thrown to the floor. He scrambled back, eyes wide as the massive beast loomed over him. A realization struck: this creature's dense fur and thick fat resembled a brown bear's, likely enough to dull even hollow point rounds. He reached for another rifle, considering the Kalash bullet. With steady breath, he prepared for a direct strike. Though uncertain if it would penetrate, he took aim at the creature's throat, heart locked as the likely weak point. Alan fired toward the Orc King's heart, but the monster staggered forward, seemingly unfazed. His target had absorbed the damage. Switching tactics, Alan aimed between the creature's eyes, hoping a direct shot would pierce its thick skull. The beast charged Alan, hesitated, his position gave him a bad angle, and he couldn't land the shot cleanly in time. The impact threw him across the floor. Pain shot through his body as the Orc King continued its relentless advance. Rising slowly, Alan clenched his jaw. It was clear this wouldn't be a quick fight. He had to endure a drawn-out battle. Alan steadied his breathing, considering his next move. The idea of crafting slug rounds crossed his mind, but something felt off. To his surprise, the Orc King had collapsed. Alan approached cautiously, puzzled by the sudden stillness. A closer look revealed the truth: his shot had landed in the heart after all. The beast had pushed through the pain until it finally gave out. Even with a mortal wound, the king had managed to launch one last charge. Alan couldn't help but admire its strength. With little space left, he packed what meat he could. This victory deserved to be tasted. At the labyrinth's end, Alan discovered a treasure chest. Using his appraisal skill, he identified the reward: a bracelet of fertility. He frowned at its function, a charm to enhance reproduction. It felt wildly inappropriate for an orc dungeon. With the Orc King defeated, Alan completed the first round of the Great Labyrinth. Yet he couldn't help but question the logic of this world. Sometime later, he arrived at the Elf Village airport. Children trained nearby while villagers moved with cheerful energy. Grateful for their kindness, Alan began returning regularly, drawn by their hospitality and the high-quality honey they sold. The village's playground had transformed into an archery training ground, but no one seemed to mind. Children practiced enthusiastically. Still, Alan knew not everyone was pleased. Sherry, the elf princess, voiced her annoyance about cutting down trees for infrastructure. Despite the chaos, Alan reflected on a milestone: he had finally turned 13. The moment passed quietly amid the shouting. His efforts had paid off. He earned the Orc Slayer achievement, rising to rank D and level 23, a respectable growth from repeated dungeon runs. Back at the airstrip, the Elven Queen greeted him kindly. As usual, the honey he requested was prepared, and the villagers supported him warmly. Aslan expressed his gratitude. The villagers reminded him of his role in saving them. Their warmth left little room for formal thanks. Even when the Elf Queen offered to waive his payment, Alan insisted on fair trade. With his level rising more slowly now, Alan decided it was time to face more difficult labyrinths. Rumors of a new challenge had reached him. He announced his destination: the Labyrinth of the Wind Mountain. The journey would test all his skills. There, a blizzard phoenix awaited. Stronger than any foe he'd faced, it marked the beginning of a truly dangerous stage in his adventure. The Elf Queen asked if his destination was dangerous. Alan gave a reassuring nod, promising not to overexert himself. He showed her the amulet she once gifted him. She smiled warmly, touched that he still wore it. With sincere words, she wished Alan luck and trusted the charm would keep him safe. Alan responded with quiet determination. Just then, a panicked call rang out. Alan was smacked by an overeager greeting, caught completely off guard. A small fairy lamented she couldn't join his journey due to a contract. Despite her antics, Alan was secretly grateful for the distance. At the Zeven Adventurers Guild, a young boy made an unusual request to enter the Labyrinth of the Wind Mountain alone. Introducing himself as Alan, a 13-year-old D-rank adventurer, he remained calm despite their skepticism. His serious gaze showed quiet resolve. Before proceeding, the rules were outlined. Any unregistered entry or removal of items from the labyrinth would be treated as a criminal act. Once cleared, Alan accepted the warning to stay on the first floor and accepted the permit with gratitude. Though surrounded by elite adventurers, the lone boy stood firm, aware of how others saw him, yet unfazed by doubt. Before him stood the towering labyrinth of the Wind Mountain. Although it held only 8 known levels, legend spoke of 30. Alan advanced with purpose, undeterred by its reputation. His plan was clear: conquer each floor repeatedly, until he entered the academy. Suddenly, giant vampire bats emerged from the shadows, wings slicing through the air as they dove toward him. With swift reflexes, he raised his weapon and fired. The creatures fell instantly, their threat neutralized by overwhelming force. His gun, a magic replica of the Saiga 12 shotgun, delivered power unmatched by conventional means crafted for battles like this. Blown away by the results, Alan admired the sheer destructive power of his shotgun. The sight wasn't elegant, but it was effective. With Saiga in hand, he advanced effortlessly through the labyrinth, surpassing veteran adventurers and reaching level 28 without pause. The floating islets presented a magical puzzle, hitting small targets with wind magic to teleport forward. However, the sequence mattered. A single mistake would send him to the entrance or into the abyss, with success determined by chance. As flying enemies attacked from above, Alan held his ground, relying on both his weapon and prior knowledge to survive. Rather than follow the main route, Alan chose a hidden path, stepping off course to seek something others might miss. He recalled that a secret room could be found below the islet, accessible by navigating its side correctly in-game. With each step, Alan charged his special ability, Smelt, preparing to forge or enhance equipment using accumulated energy. Inside the chamber, he discovered a rare treasure, 2 substitute rings, capable of reviving the wearer once after death. Knowing their in-game roles, Alan took both without hesitation, planning to equip one immediately and save the other for later. Standing before the final door, Alan prepared himself. With a substitute ring equipped, he had no reason to stall any longer. Inside the dark chamber, he faced the last guardian of the labyrinth, a towering figure waiting in silence. The enemy revealed itself as the Blizzard Phoenix, a powerful creature of ice and flight. Without warning, the beast launched its assault, sending freezing winds and shimmering feathers crashing forward. Anticipating the ambush, Alan activated a protective barrier through his smelted shield, ready for the decisive clash just as the game had taught him. Dodging the first strike, Alan kept his distance. He knew that surviving the opening attack was key to the fight. From there, he unleashed a rapid combination of concealment and gunfire, attempting to wear the Phoenix down with precision shots. However, the enemy adapted. It evaded his bullets and retaliated with freezing winds and ice arrows, threatening to overwhelm his defenses. Thinking quickly, Alan conjured a boulder to shield himself, buying precious seconds against the relentless assault. He paused to reassess, planning to weaken the Phoenix from afar until it fell within range of Saiga's decisive shot. Alan understood the rhythm. His only option was to trade blows from afar in a drawn-out skirmish of hit and run. He swiftly evaded incoming strikes, generating another boulder for cover before sliding behind it to avoid the ice barrage. Using the boulder as a shield, he waited patiently for the blizzard to subside, conserving energy and assessing the enemy's movement. Once the assault paused, Alan resumed the cycle attack, concealment, retreat, then new shelter. Each action timed with practiced precision. Just as he neared his opportunity, the Phoenix shifted tactics, unleashing a freezing storm that engulfed everything in its path. Seeing the Blizzard Phoenix plummet, Alan seized the chance. He rushed forward, ready to deliver a final, close-range shot, but as he sprinted, his footing gave out. The slick, icy ground caused him to slip uncontrollably. Panic set in. He shouted in vain. Realizing he couldn't stop in time, the falling beast hurtled toward him. With a violent crash, the Phoenix slammed into the ground just inches away, throwing up ice and debris. Alan landed hard but unharmed. The Phoenix was down, motionless. He caught his breath, aware how narrowly he'd escaped death. Knowing the danger wasn't over, Alan prepared to end the fight properly before the Phoenix could recover its strength. He approached the fallen creature, shivering as he examined its body. The intense cold seeped through the feathers and ground. To his surprise, the feathers didn't melt when removed. Carefully, he began collecting the tail and wing feathers one by one. Inside the treasure room, Alan found light bones worth harvesting and a sealed chest waiting to be opened. Though the legendary sword drew attention, it was the strange device tucked in the corner, the magic stone synthesizer, that truly intrigued him. Alan examined the small magic stones, intrigued by the synthesizer's ability to combine them into larger, more powerful forms. A visual explanation revealed the value in merging 16 small stones could create one rare high-grade gem worth far more. Realizing the profit margin, he devised a plan. Repeating dungeon runs and using synthesis would steadily increase his wealth. For now, he chose to remain low-key. Farming resources quietly, he vowed to hide the extent of his progress. Back in town, Alan blended in, easily returning to menial chores, all while hiding the strength he had just proven underground. Though he continued doing part-time work, Alan confirmed he would soon enroll in high school, balancing both paths carefully. He mentioned his recent promotion to D rank, noting it aligned with finally attending formal classes. Inside, his mentor encouraged him to complete a request that would push him to C rank, particularly to avoid being underestimated at school. Alan didn't seem concerned about ranks, but his master insisted the difference mattered for eligibility and reputation. Seeing through Alan's evasiveness, the mentor gently insisted he clearly knew the boy was hiding much more than he admitted. Alan hesitated to explain himself. He didn't want anyone discovering his fighting style reliant on guns and concealment magic. Before he could clarify further, a trio of older adventurers appeared, eagerly welcoming him as a new team member. Caught off guard, Alan questioned the arrangement. Working with a group of seasoned men wasn't what he expected, but his mentor left no room for debate. A mission had already been scheduled, and orders were to meet at dawn. Even more shocking, his guild request had been processed without him knowing. Everything had already been set in motion. Alan tried to protest, but one of the drunk team members suddenly clung to him, causing immediate discomfort and panic. Despite Alan's complaints, the group was dismissed casually. His complaints about alcohol went ignored as orders for tomorrow's mission stood firm. Carlin leaned forward with bright eyes, urging Alan to reveal something she couldn't wait to see. Her energy filled the room as Alan glanced over. Someone nearby reminded her not to interrupt, prompting a playful pout from Carlin, while Alan remained quietly composed. Soon after, the journey began. Alan took his place among the escort team, guiding a line of wagons toward the remote village of Yerstorf. Their client, Dirk, traveled the route regularly, managing supply runs whenever the village faced shortages. By selling essential goods in the capital, Dirk ensured Yerstorf stayed stocked, then made his way back without delay. While the wagon rattled along the trail, Carlin leaned toward Alan and eagerly asked to see his magic once they reached the village. Alan gave a quiet nod in agreement. The escort group, made up of seasoned guild members, noted how closely Carlin clung to Alan, far more than anyone else. Their route wound through rough terrain, made riskier by recent bandit attacks that had damaged passing caravans. Alan explained his wind-based magic, which could repel enemies, though he kept the details vague. He admitted leaving his wind magic weapons behind, yet Carlin insisted he showcase his abilities anyway. Alan revealed a compact weapon, his wind magic gun crafted in the image of a Makarov pistol, chosen for its concealability and quiet operation. Though confident in its effectiveness, he hesitated with a troubling thought. What if he ever had to use it on a person? The weight of that question lingered. Could he shoot someone who wasn't a monster, but a living human? Carlin noticed his unease and asked gently, snapping Alan out of his thoughts with a forced smile. With the path ahead, turning narrow and dangerous, the risk of bandits became very real. The caravan crept along a narrow mountain trail, its path flanked by cliffs and thick forest. Hidden eyes watched from above. Suddenly boulders tumbled down the slope. Alan and the others reacted immediately as chaos erupted. Horses neighed, and Carlin clung to him tightly. From the cliffs, armed bandits began their ambush, flanking the convoy from the rear as well. Weapons drawn, they surrounded the wagons, blocking any chance of escape as tension spiked among the guards. Their leader stepped forward, smug and confident, announcing they would be taking everything, including the cargo. The guild members quickly assessed the enemy's numbers. Orders were issued. Dirk was told to stay hidden while the others prepared for battle. Arrows flew across the battlefield as one of the escorts took aim with precision, driving back a charging bandit. Steel clashed on both sides. Blades met with fierce resistance as the attackers pressed in from every angle. Amid the chaos, Alan was called upon to join the fray. A teammate urged him to demonstrate his magic in combat. Hesitation struck him. These weren't monsters, but people. The decision weighed heavily on his conscience. Seeing an attacker rush at his ally, Alan reacted instinctively. He shouted the spell's name and unleashed his windcutter magic. The incoming bandit was knocked back mid-charge, his blade dropping as the slicing wind struck him with force. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. Their leader, startled by the unexpected magic, ordered a retreat. As the bandits began to flee, one of the escorts urged Alan not to let them escape. Torn between restraint and duty, Alan hesitated. The command to kill clashed with his conscience. Battle ended with the bandits fleeing. Alan stood in silence, watching them disappear into the distance, conflicted. The rear guards confirmed the area was secure. The attackers had numbered more than expected, but the threat was temporarily over. Alan's teammates regrouped. One of them asked about the enemy's hideout, but none had found it. Their numbers had clearly grown. Frustration boiled over. Jared confronted Alan, scolding him for holding back when lethal force might have ended it more decisively. Yet another voice chimed in, urging caution. Killing people, even enemies, wasn't always the right path. Brutal consequences were laid bare. Survivors of raids often faced death, slavery, or worse. Sparing enemies risked future violence. One escort gave harsh advice. Killing wasn't just acceptable, it was expected. Mercy, he warned, had no place on the road. Quietly, the boy listened. Warnings echoed behind him, pressing the weight of reality onto uncertain shoulders. Tasks resumed. Clearing debris and restoring order helped shift focus from the grim lesson to immediate duty. Arrival at Yerstorf brought relief. Since that battle, no more bandits dared challenge them along the way. Shouts echoed through the village as children recognized the returning wagon. Word spread quickly. Supplies had arrived from the capital. Locals rushed to help unload crates. Cheerful greetings filled the air while hands moved briskly to support the effort. Excitement swelled as new clothes were shown off. Some admired the styles. Others scolded the impromptu fashion display in public. Laughter followed a playful complaint. Someone teased Carlin for being just like the other countryside girls she was criticizing. Gifts and medicine were distributed with gratitude. Amid the noise, Carlin chased after a yellow ribbon she claimed as hers. A quiet moment turned serious. Harsh words cut through. If leadership had been his, the mission would have failed. Reason for that failure was already known. Sparing lives, while noble, wasn't a luxury on the battlefield. Bandits, orcs, goblins, it made no difference. Next time, hesitation must be replaced with resolve. Before reflection could settle in, a familiar voice interrupted. A promise about magic hadn't been forgotten. More children gathered, eagerly chanting. Whatever weight lingered from combat, their excitement pushed it aside for now. Wind magic delighted the children. Gusts spun through the air until dusk, laughter trailing as parents called them home. Later, tables filled under lamplight. Locals gathered for a feast, raising cups in celebration of safe arrival. Gratitude ran deep, but tradition played its part too. Hospitality toward outsiders wasn't just polite, it was expected. A quiet custom lingered beneath the surface. In isolated places, newcomers were urged to help preserve bloodlines. Owen's bold invitation caught him off guard. Blushing and flustered, he stammered through rejection, questioning the absurd situation. Morning brought groggy greetings. Companions, drained from more than battle, joked wearily while the village echoed with unexpected sounds. Despite the fatigue, children gathered once again. Smiles returned quickly, their bright eyes begging for another show. Suddenly, tension shifted. A panicked voice called out for the chief, urgency replacing joy. Shouts grew louder. A name pierced through Carlin. Fear gripped the room as realization struck. Stillness broke. Word hit like lightning. Carlin had vanished, abducted while no one noticed. Eyes widened. Hearts dropped. Calm was over. News of Carlin's abduction spreads through the town, casting a heavy silence. Alan hears the report and freezes in disbelief. At home, he stares at the younger children, his chest tightening. He recalls the moment they left the wall to gather crops. Now certain that was when it happened. Alan blames himself. Guilt overtakes him. He rushes out of the house, determined to act, meeting Jared as he leaves. Tears mix with sweat as Alan shouts. He failed to stop the threat. He failed to kill them when he had the chance. Jared questions his resolve, urging caution. But Alan is firm he's going to raid the bandits alone. Alan tries to rally support, but Jared warns of consequences. Adventurers won't act without cause, and retaliation could bring ruin to the village. A shadowy figure emerges with a chilling claim. 3 children are now in his control, and their safety hangs by a thread. At the gate, the bandits make demands: surrender resources and people, or face slaughter and destruction. Any resistance would lead to immediate bloodshed. He voices regret, questioning Jared's choices. If action had been taken earlier, things might have been different. Jared reflects grimly. The bandits acted smart, and even if delayed, their threat was inevitable. While others hesitated, one proposal emerged to raid the hideout and defend the village at once. Despite doubts, Alan gave a firm answer. Grim warnings followed. A single moment of hesitation could cost lives. Determined eyes met the challenge with resolve, memories of a smiling face pushing him forward. Support arrived unexpectedly. Adventurers who once stood back now accepted the mission, offering strength for the battle ahead. One villager stepped forward, pleading for his sister's safety. Tears streamed down his face as desperation broke through. Under the moonlit sky, a quiet vow was made. No matter what, she would be saved. Questions about the bandits' location led them deep into the forest. Based on the timeline, their hiding spot had to be nearby. Estimates placed the hideout just a few hours away on foot. Every moment counted as they moved under the cover of darkness. From a hilltop vantage point, a sweeping view revealed likely hideout spots nestled in the distant woods. A faint watchfire glowed near a known cave, once home to a previous gang. It likely housed around 30 men. Without hesitation, Alan planned to infiltrate. Doubts were cast, but his decision stood firm. Confidence replaced doubt. Alan assured them stealth was his strength, and the village couldn't afford delay. With the threat looming, questions about his solo plan arose. He broke down the enemy's weakened numbers, showing that victory wasn't as far-fetched as it seemed. A strategy formed in his mind. While testing his setup, he reassured Jared, who remained skeptical about infiltration. Trust didn't come easily, but the risk was accepted. One more chance was granted. Alan promised a silent entry and safe return. Beneath clouded skies, a final whisper affirmed his resolve. Failure wasn't an option. Approaching the hideout, Alan warned Jared to stay behind. Too much movement together risked detection, and the enemy had laid out noise traps. Using concealment magic, he moved unseen. Even his closest ally failed to notice him slip away. With his ability active, Alan crept toward the cave entrance. A lone guard stood nearby, prompting him to stay low and observe. Recognition struck this man once escaped him. Regret lingered from the last encounter where he couldn't deliver a fatal blow. Tension spiked as they locked eyes. Alan braced himself, needing to act before proceeding further. With appraisal magic, the cave's structure came into view. A sprawling and intricate layout stretched ahead, far larger than expected. Navigating further inside, Alan began analyzing the enemy's positions. Understanding their patrol routes was crucial to proceed undetected. A three-way fork emerged deeper in. 13 men were already accounted for, heightening the risk with every step taken. In one chamber, several children sat behind iron bars unharmed for now. Relief came briefly, but Carlin was nowhere among them. Eyes shifted toward the sealed passage. Hope flickered that answers, and Carlin lay beyond that barricaded path. A sealed passage led to a deeper chamber. Supplies scattered outside hinted at its importance. Determination filled Alan's eyes. Heavy wooden beams blocked the way, but he found a route past them. Every step was deliberate, silence a necessity. Through a narrow opening, he spotted movement. What he saw twisted his expression into alarm. Carlin lay helpless under a man's weight. Fear and exhaustion marked her face. Alan's shock turned instantly to fury. Without hesitation, he struck. Rage powered his fist, delivering a crushing blow that echoed through the room. Blows landed without mercy. The assailant collapsed under the flurry of strikes, left motionless in the aftermath. Panting heavily, Alan glanced at the girl curled on the floor. Recognition and relief surfaced as he whispered her name. He extended a trembling hand, offering reassurance. She had endured enough. Escape would begin now. Without warning, Carlin clung to him, holding back sobs. A single word burst from her lips, filled with desperation and love. Caution returned quickly. A soft reminder to stay quiet followed. She nodded, swallowing her fear. After leading Carlin to safety, Alan gave her instructions to remain hidden. The mission wasn't over. Others still needed rescuing. With the entrance blocked, he assured her of his return. She nodded quietly, understanding the risk he faced. In concealment, he approached another room. A man sat alone, unaware. Alan readied his weapon with cold precision. Jared's words echoed in his mind, painting bandits as inhuman. Memories of what Carlin endured hardened his resolve. No hesitation followed. A silenced shot rang out, ending another threat in grim silence. Softly, Alan reached the cell and signaled the children. Hope flickered in their eyes as he whispered his promise. With Carlin by their side, the rescued kids followed closely. Alan quickly counted their number and kept track. 2 enemies already down. 11 still remained. Before moving forward, he instructed them to brace themselves. A barricade needed sealing from within, cutting off escape. Elsewhere, bandits noticed something wrong. Confusion grew as they questioned the sealed chamber hiding their leader. Alan stood guard before a carved emblem, tension rising. Unfamiliar markings hinted at something more than just a hiding place. A brilliant flash erupted from the carved seal. Shockwaves blasted outward, hurling bodies through the air like ragdolls. Outside, bandits were thrown into chaos. Jared watched in stunned disbelief as debris and limbs flew in every direction. Confusion turned to anger. Jared stormed in, demanding an explanation. Alan, calm and focused, confirmed it was the signal. The aftermath revealed groaning survivors. Alan stood over them, torn between mercy and the urge to finish them off. The cave shuddered, priorities shifted. He chose to evacuate the children before anything else. Bloodied and enraged, a bandit lunged to strike Alan down, but was swiftly countered by Jared's sudden intervention. Arriving just in time, Jared stepped over the fallen attacker. The chaos began to settle as Alan looked up in relief. With danger behind them, the group prepared to return. Alan led the children out while Jared watched over their steps. Tears welled in Carlin's eyes. Emotion finally burst as safety confirmed the mission's end. Bandit heads lined the village gate, a gruesome warning to others. Confident in their strength, the veterans set out to finish the job. Alan, though eager, was instructed to remain behind and assist with preparations for their return to the capital. Inside the bandits' hideout, the remaining enemies were put down. The seniors acted without hesitation, bound by duty more than emotion, recalling his own experience. Alan accepted the blood on his hands. As the wagon rolled to the gate, Alan climbed aboard. The journey to the capital and to whatever came next was about to begin. As Alan prepared to leave, he was approached by Carlin and the village children. With the bandit mission complete, Alan set out once more. He promised to return someday, leaving the village behind as he climbed aboard the wagon. By the age of 15, Alan had already achieved the rank of C-class adventurer, earning recognition as the youngest to do so. Before his departure, he shared a quiet moment with a close companion, receiving words of encouragement and a sincere wish for luck. Dressed in uniform and determination, Alan stepped into a new chapter ready to face whatever awaited beyond the gates. Alan stepped onto the Royal Academy grounds, his heart steady. Before him stood the grand campus of the Royal High School, his new beginning. As he joined the incoming students in the grand auditorium, the staff announced that only 39 had been accepted this term. Among them was Alan. Despite hoping for Class B, Alan was assigned to Class A dominated by aristocrats. Knowing the rules, he understood that speaking out of turn as a commoner could cause problems. Surrounded by nobility, Alan kept his distance until a noble girl named Anastasia walked in, turning every head in the room. Among the noble students, one figure stood out. Anastasia's elegance and commanding presence captivated Alan more than the grandeur of the school itself. He couldn't be sure, but it felt like she glanced in his direction. Around her were other elite students: Oscar, the refined heir of Wilmot, and Marcus, a brilliant scholar. More prestigious names filled the room: Leonardo, son of the Imperial Guard commander, and Claude, a royal prince gifted with divine strength. The nobles quickly noticed Alan. Their remarks made light of his commoner status, but he responded calmly, unfazed by their mockery. As another powerful student entered the hall, Alan's attention shifted. The arrival of Crown Prince Karl Heinz drew every eye. His confident stride and noble aura made it clear why others viewed him with awe. Alan's focus shifted as a girl approached. Her calm, graceful presence stood out, stirring a quiet curiosity within him. She introduced herself as Amy von Braze, a fellow student. Her warm smile caught Alan off guard. Amy revealed she was also a commoner and remembered Alan from their earlier school. She admired his perfect academic record. Choosing a seat beside him, Amy invited conversation. Alan, surprised yet grateful, agreed to talk until the ceremony began. Alan reflected on the entrance ceremony, realizing how distracted he'd been. This moment was meant for Amy, the heroine of the story. Amy's smile stunned him. She embodied everything expected of a game heroine: charming, cheerful, and effortlessly radiant. Orientation passed in a blur. A week later, Alan settled into the dorms and exchanged brief words with his mother before parting. Despite appearances, Alan felt isolated. No one spoke to him. Surrounded by nobles, he sat quietly, completely alone. Meanwhile, Amy walked confidently beside the crown prince, her story progressing while Alan remained a background character. School rules demanded that commoners bow silently to nobles in hallways. Alan followed the protocol without complaint. While classes finally began, Alan noticed Amy no longer acknowledged him. The initial kindness she'd shown had vanished. During lessons, instructors emphasized that mastering magic required not only activation, but precise control and awareness. An outdoor lesson soon followed. The teacher asked who could already use magic, prompting students to reveal their capabilities. Alan observed fewer hands than expected. Despite assuming magical proficiency was required, not many seemed confident enough to respond. During the magic training session, the instructor asked the crown prince to demonstrate. Karl Heinz accepted confidently, eager to show off his skill. With a glowing orb forming in his hand, the prince confirmed the task and prepared to attack. His flame magic sparked to life. He launched the spell with precision, striking the target dead center. Applause followed as the teacher praised his flawless execution. Next, Anastasia was called forward. The instructor moved on to another element of magic control and attribute use. Focused and intense, Anastasia activated her spell. Her magic shimmered with power, drawing everyone's attention to her growing strength. Anastasia unleashed a powerful attack, destroying the reinforced target with ease. Her display left the audience stunned. The crown prince, humiliated by the comparison, shouted at her in frustration. His pride had been wounded in front of everyone. He claimed to have held back, accusing her of showing him up. Anastasia rejected his complaint without hesitation. Fueled by anger, the prince released an intense burst of magic, ignoring warnings. As the energy spiraled out of control, a violent explosion erupts during the practical exam, sending shockwaves through the arena. Amid the chaos, the crown prince recoils, while a resolute girl steps forward, hand raised, channeling a spell. In an instant, a towering wall of water rises, shielding the students from the oncoming blast. Screams echo as debris crashes against the magical barrier. Once the smoke clears, the prince is found collapsed, prompting a surge of panic among his peers. One student kneels beside him. Ami quickly begins treatment, her healing magic glowing softly. Concern tightens her brow. Regaining consciousness, the prince stares at his hand. Awestruck, his gaze drifts to Amy. Realization dawning, Amy reaches out with concern, checking the crown prince's condition as he regains full consciousness. Lowering her gaze, Amy blushes, revealing that her actions were motivated by loyalty to someone else. Her humility stands in contrast to the praise she receives. Meanwhile, others reflect on the outcome, relieved that the prince suffered only minor injuries. Quiet speculation begins had Amy truly altered the original course of events. Time passes, and the bond between Amy and the prince visibly strengthens. Their closeness deepens, yet jealousy festers. Whispers of her origins turn cruel, and Amy begins to face targeted bullying. Anastasia reappears at the academy, accompanied by girls once believed to have vanished after civil unrest. Their presence draws immediate attention. Confronting a group of students, Anastasia reprimands them harshly for gossiping, reminding them of their duties as nobles. Her stern tone silences them. Meanwhile, Amy quietly notices the shift in atmosphere. Feeling isolated, she wonders why her peers have started avoiding her. Behind closed doors, rumors spread further. Some accuse Amy of manipulating others through charm to gain favor with the prince and others. Observing the situation, one student reflects on how different Amy feels from the version he knew in the original game. Amy quietly endures her loneliness, reflecting on her position once a commoner, now thrown into aristocratic society, targeted by bullies and suspicion. Within the academy, factions have clearly formed. Anastasia leads one, the crown prince the other. Amy, however, stands alone with no allies. Despite this, Anastasia keeps hostilities at bay. Her own faction is small, but she restrains them from escalating the conflict. Meanwhile, the crown prince's side shows little affection for Amy. Though they accept her presence, their motives seem strategic rather than sincere. Even as others conspire to remove Anastasia, the crown prince remains fixated on Amy, ignoring his own fee entirely. Alan reflects under the shower, troubled by the prince's unchecked power and the corrupt nobility that surrounds him. He fears the kingdom may be heading toward ruin throughout. School life, Alan maintains a reserved stance. He avoids unnecessary interaction, observing both commoners and nobles from a distance. As exams conclude, a tense atmosphere settles over the academy. Summer arrives, but uncertainty lingers. Before the break, students are reminded to prepare for their upcoming independent study, an assignment that carries lasting consequences. Class rankings are revealed. Independent study will now determine student placement, sharpening the line between elite and ordinary. Anastasia approaches Alan, calling out to confirm his name. Her direct manner catches him off guard, but he responds respectfully. Rather than looking down on him, she praises Alan's academic performance, impressed by his humility, despite being a top scorer as a commoner. Learning of his adventuring experience, she acknowledges his skills and promises to send a messenger with further instructions. Before leaving, Anastasia offers a polite apology for the interruption, surprising Alan with her grace. As she departs, Alan wonders why he was chosen. The term ends, and summer vacation begins. Alan introduces himself to the student team as their appointed guide for exploring the nearby ruins, standing before the full group with a cheerful expression. As preparations begin, Anastasia silently questions how the situation unfolded this way. Meanwhile, the group readies to depart. While walking, Alan explains the dangers ahead, warning them about horned rabbits known to attack travelers. The request came directly from Anastasia, one he couldn't refuse. Two confident students boast of their training, certain they won't be harmed by mere beasts. Others joke casually about hunting and cooking the creatures, brushing off the warning with arrogance. Jokes and teasing fly among the group, with Marcus making fun of another's cooking skills. Some students laugh, while others grow increasingly tired. Ami's kind gesture toward Alan sparks a playful argument. Several boys compete over who she belongs to, ignoring her clear discomfort. Anastasia observes silently, unimpressed by the escalating commotion. The situation threatens to break into a fight until she intervenes with a cold stare. Soon, the crown prince reminds everyone to pick up the pace, citing royal expectations. Tension breaks as the group regains focus. Alan, still flustered, follows behind as orders are barked at him with little patience. At the forest's edge, the party encounters an ancient stone ruin. Crumbling steps, damp moss, and broken pillars give it an unstable appearance. Ascending the stairs proves difficult as the surface becomes slick and uneven. Several members lose balance, forcing others to slow their pace and offer support. Observing the situation, the protagonist realizes the scenario has already shifted. A glowing stone provides limited light, revealing ancient walls and confined pathways stretching deeper underground. Subtle changes in mood emerge, while the protagonist remains alert, aware that even minor deviations could reshape the unfolding fate. Inside the glowing ruin, the light reflects off the walls and draws everyone's attention. Questions about danger surface as the group recalls the ruin's past. Doubt spreads when nothing appears as expected. Tension rises briefly as frustration is directed toward the empty result of the exploration. Walking deeper, the group confirms the chamber holds no threats. The air feels stale, and the room offers little of interest beyond bare stone. Further reflection reveals the truth of the place. Treasures once stored here were already taken during a prior examination, leaving only an empty ruin behind. The ruin. Noting how goblins once occupied a decaying structure so close to the royal capital, Amy suddenly steps aside, crouching near the wall as if she sensed something unusual. At the same time, the protagonist recalls a familiar spot from the original scenario and feels certain they have reached a key area. Alan, the red-haired young man, looks impatient as complaints about the smell and layout spread through the group. Amy remains thoughtful, staring ahead in silence, realizes her curiosity has been sparked, suggesting that this ruin still holds meaning beyond what appears on the surface. The scroll's discovery should have been random, yet Amy moved directly to the exact location, as if guided by prior knowledge. Watching her closely, doubt forms in his mind. Her reactions feel familiar, raising the unsettling possibility that she understands this world in the same way he does. Outside the ruin, the group regathers while remaining alert. Confidence from the escorts keeps everyone calm as they begin preparing to leave the area safely. Alan appears uneasy, glancing back at the ruin as if something still feels unresolved before departing. Amy acknowledges the successful exploration with quiet satisfaction. He realizes the world is slowly changing. As expected, hostility fades, events shift, and the group calmly prepares to return. Anastasia approached Alan with a calm yet firm request. She needed him to accompany her the next day. Though surprised, Alan accepted her invitation without hesitation. After completing an exploration of an ancient ruin, Alan was once again summoned by Anastasia, the encounter marking a new turn in their connection. Arriving early at the front gate of the school, Alan waited silently, the atmosphere tense with expectation. A carriage appeared before him, its presence signaling the beginning of an important journey. Through the window, Anastasia watched him. As the carriage door opened, Alan stood ready, uncertain, but willing to follow her wherever this path led. Anastasia stepped down from the carriage with confidence, offering a brief apology for the delay. Alan responded with composure, assuring her that he hadn't waited long. She quickly shifted the mood and instructed him to board. Attempting to take the driver's seat, Alan was gently corrected and redirected inside the carriage. As the carriage rolled through the busy streets, she expressed gratitude for Alan's assistance during their previous outing. Seated across from her, Alan listened carefully as Anastasia explained their next destination, a visit to gather insight from experts for an important report. Anastasia explained her plans to consult specialists versed in the labyrinth's history and the recently discovered ruin. Alan was taken aback by the depth of preparation. She reminded him that such thoroughness was expected at her level, even if unfamiliar to commoners. The report they were preparing wasn't trivial. It would be presented before royalty and noble heirs from multiple nations. Determined to ensure accuracy, Anastasia emphasized the importance of gathering expert insight for their country's future diplomacy. Inspired by her resolve, Alan silently vowed to support her, motivated by her genuine dedication. They deepened their research by visiting experts, including a scholar specialized in goblins, absorbing every lecture and document available. Despite the report being a group assignment, none of the princes contributed. Anastasia and Alan carried the entire workload through sleepless nights. After organizing their notes and holding lengthy discussions, the two finally completed the comprehensive report. However, the report's length drew complaints. A noble demanded a summary, dismissing their effort with a 3-minute limit. Indifferent and pressed for time, he insisted on a simplified explanation, ignoring the depth and dedication poured into their work. Alan admitted that reading dense reports on the spot was inconvenient, offering a casual excuse to delay deeper engagement. Anastasia, visibly displeased, reminded him they were equals, not subordinates. His dismissive tone didn't go unnoticed. Despite the tension, Alan delivered a simplified version of the report, carefully highlighting its key findings in a way the prince could easily digest. The crown prince gave a brief compliment before walking away, leaving Alan in silent reflection. Though frustrated, Anastasia apologized for the prince's attitude, asking Alan to stay patient in the face of arrogance. A shadow passed over her expression, distant, resigned. It struck Alan like a blow. She looked as though she'd given up entirely. That moment revealed more than words. She seemed like someone who had accepted her role as a tool in a political game, bound by duty. News of the report's quality spread quickly, earning approval from teachers and officials alike. While praise poured onto the prince, Alan was labeled as an idle bystander, despite doing most of the work, staring out the window. Alan muttered a plan once winter came. He'd end this charade himself. As summer faded, the crisp wind of autumn settled in, time moved forward. bringing change neither could avoid. Posters for the cultural festival appeared. Students buzzed with excitement, chatting about booths and group projects in every corner. Participation was mandatory. While Alan had his own plan, he also kept an eye on certain people, expecting something to go wrong. Anastasia approached with an offer to assist her again, but Alan had already submitted his entry. Though surprised, she smiled and wished him well. Her voice was warm, but something behind her eyes remained distant. No longer obligated to join any group, Alan chose to keep his distance until the moment he needed to act arrived. Hidden by a concealment spell, he quietly observed the preparations. Amy naturally took charge while others followed her lead. As feared, Anastasia stood isolated, ignored as the group favored Amy's suggestions and presence. Instead of being treated as a partner, she was asked to serve tea, her talents overlooked, her voice dismissed. Amy's tone was patronizing, her smile smug. She assumed Anastasia had nothing better to do than serve those who excluded her. While Anastasia remained behind, the others, including Amy and the prince, strolled off to enjoy tea in the garden. Left alone, she insisted she'd drink the tea herself. Their dismissal didn't go unnoticed, but she endured it in silence. Amy returned, questioning her presence with a sharp smile. Her tone suggested Anastasia's efforts were meaningless. With a smug expression, Amy mocked her composure and warned that Carl would grow tired of her cold demeanor. She claimed the nation too, longed for a more graceful queen, someone charming, agreeable, and nothing like Anastasia. Amy leaned closer with a mocking grin, urging Anastasia to smile, pretending concern while ridiculing her dignity. Behind the facade, tension thickened. Amy's words stung, and Alan, watching from afar, recognized how the situation had veered off the original game's path. A reminder of hierarchy was quickly thrown at Anastasia. Fellow students used social rank to silence her, rejecting the idea of equality. She countered, pointing out Amy's hypocrisy. Her actions with Carl weren't innocent either. The confrontation escalated. When insults turned personal, Anastasia rose. Alan rushed in, unable to stay silent any longer. Prince Carl burst in, siding with Amy without hesitation. He scolded Anastasia, claiming she had no right to challenge Amy. With finality, he ended the discussion and dismissed her. No room for argument, his decision was made. Left behind, Anastasia quietly gathered documents and materials. No words of protest escaped her lips. In the corridor, Amy confronted her with a venomous smirk, mocking her loss, the engagement, the prince, everything now out of reach. As she walked away, Amy's parting words struck deep. Serves you right. It wasn't victory, it was cruelty. A sudden slap echoed in the hallway. Anastasia's face stung with shock as Amy stepped back, satisfied with the blow. Before the tension escalated further, Alan appeared. With light sarcasm, he cut in, pretending not to notice the hostility. Ignoring the sting, Anastasia turned to Amy. Her voice steady, she reminded her rival of the prince's status and the responsibility that came with it. She spoke with conviction. Amy's conduct disrespected nobility. Alan backed her up, eyes sharp with silent judgment. Left stunned, Amy muttered in disbelief. A background nobody had just undermined her control, and she couldn't understand how. Alan realized the incident's timing had changed. The slap, once a key turning point in the game's collapse, had been avoided, despite his experience. This shift was unfamiliar, even in extra mode. This wasn't expected. He confirmed Amy was another reincarnator. Her actions could lead to the city's downfall. He resolved to stop her. Amy introduced herself with pride, claiming the title of the world's chosen heroine. Life had not always been so grand. After a harsh accident left her unconscious, memories from another world began flooding back into her mind. She soon recognized her surroundings, a perfect replica of the Otome game she once adored. In her former life, Amy had been a lonely girl, neglected by classmates, and consumed by fantasy. A fatal accident had ended that bleak reality. Now, she saw this new world as a gift, a reset. Reborn within the game's narrative, Amy embraced her second chance as the true heroine. Amy and her mother were welcomed into the Bray's Baron household. The truth of her bloodline emerged. She was the Baron's illegitimate daughter. Overcome with excitement, Amy believed her future was secured. Lavish gowns, a castle life, and attention from charming suitors felt within reach. Determined to follow the game's romance path, she entered high school with high expectations. News spread quickly. Commoners had ranked at the top of the entrance exams. Nobles grew suspicious and requested background investigations. Alan, the second-place student, had endured poverty and hardship. Meanwhile, Amy, now third, was noted for her healing gift and noble connection. Suspicion grew among the nobles regarding Alan's background, Despite being a commoner, he had achieved unusually high exam scores and attracted attention. The possibility of foreign influence or political manipulation surfaced. Rather than act hastily, the ducal family decided to observe him for now. During the entrance ceremony, new students began to take their seats. Formality filled the hall as the school year officially began. Alan's appearance raised quiet concern. Though unremarkable, at first glance, his presence drew a calculating stare from one of the nobles. Determined to protect the prince, the girl grew wary. The seemingly harmless student might not be ordinary after all. Some students recognized Alan from the commoner's school. His academic brilliance had been known, though few expected to see him here. Amy approached him boldly, asking to sit beside him. While outwardly friendly, she quickly judged him too dull to be useful romantically. Amused, she decided to keep him around as a minor helper. In her mind, Alan posed no threat, yet her focus soon shifted elsewhere. The crown prince stood beside Amy. Though their engagement was political, their closeness drew silent resentment from another noble, fearing disaster. The noble girl watched warily. If the prince remained under Amy's influence, the entire kingdom might be at risk. Anastasia stood firm in her belief she had a duty to guide the prince. If ignored, the consequences would fall upon the kingdom's people. Meanwhile, Amy demonstrated her healing ability, using a basic blessing to tend to the prince's injuries after an incident. Though slow, the spell worked. His recovery strengthened his trust in Amy, much to Anastasia's growing unease. Surrounded by admirers, Amy basked in attention. Suitors praised her beauty and charm, and romance flags bloomed around her effortlessly. To Anastasia, Amy's rise felt unjust, born with nothing, yet gaining everything the very path meant for a queen, now seemed threatened. A tragic fate awaited the noble girl betrayed, dishonored, and left to suffer the consequences of a shattered engagement. In the present, the final exam results were revealed. Alan took first place, but what shocked many was Anastasia's unexpected second-place ranking. She reflected on her failure, blaming her distraction over the prince and another woman. Alan's silent efforts had surpassed her own. Accepting reality, she acknowledged the unchangeable gap between royalty and commoners. Determined to move forward, she focused on her studies and summer research. Upon inspection, the group realized the appraisal scroll had vanished. Alarmed by the implications, they decided to retreat immediately. Ami's expression brightened with realization, understanding the situation aligned with a key element of the game's higher difficulty. Anastasia acknowledged the challenge calmly. As an experienced player, she accepted the scroll's absence and felt reassured in having invited Alan along. She observed Alan's confident leadership. His past struggles had forged his wisdom, making him an invaluable guide. Grateful for his continued support, she invited him to accompany her again, recognizing his unexpected strength since their first encounter. Amy casually observed Alan from afar, noting his growing rapport with Anastasia and his diligence in handling reports. Confident in her plans, she envisioned a future where, after removing the villainess, Alan would become her loyal subordinate. Meanwhile, Anastasia reaffirmed her impression Alan's brilliance was unmistakable and continued to exceed expectations. Their exchanges became intellectually stimulating. Though once inexperienced, Alan now contributed sharp insights. This progress brought Anastasia genuine delight. Caught smiling, she dismissed his concern with a quiet reassurance, concealing her stirring emotions beneath composed words. Alan sat apart, isolated as always. Surrounded by nobles, his position as a commoner made the academy's environment feel suffocating. Anastasia considered how she could reach out. The upcoming cultural festival sparked an idea, perhaps inviting him would help. However, when she approached, Alan had already submitted his own application, leaving her offer unnecessary. She acknowledged the outcome without protest, masking her surprise behind composed words and quiet acceptance. Though slightly disappointed, she shifted focus to the event itself, choosing instead to look forward to what the festival might bring. Amy confronted another student, hiding her disdain behind etiquette. Despite their equal status as classmates, she reminded her of the unspoken social divide. Tensions escalated as Anastasia challenged Amy's behavior. Accusations flew, sparking a heated argument just as Amy neared her goal. In a moment of provocation, Anastasia lost her composure. As she raised her voice, Carl intervened, demanding an explanation. He dismissed Amy's excuses and urged her to leave. Though Amy masked it with a smile, her plan had misfired slightly. Undeterred, she decided to push forward, eager to finish what she started. Amy confronted Anastasia with a cold smile, mocking her loss with a cruel question about her stolen fiancé. Her words dripped with malice. Without remorse, she sneered, claiming that Anastasia deserved the humiliation. Provoking further, she challenged Anastasia to retaliate, promising to repay her anger many times over, eager to escalate the conflict. Just as tension peaked, a loud sneeze interrupted them, cutting through the charged moment unexpectedly. Alan's sudden appearance stunned both girls. While Anastasia questioned his timing, Amy's scowl deepened, her plans once again disrupted by the same mob. Stepping aside, Alan's presence diffused the moment. But Amy's clenched expression revealed her fury victory had slipped from her grasp. A reminder rang out His Highness wasn't someone to be toyed with. Regardless of personal ambition or jealousy, insults flared in response. Decorum shattered as accusations and titles flew. Yet only one walked away with dignity intact. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. No retaliation came, just silent retreat and unspoken thoughts. Alone in her room, regret flickered. A reckless outburst back then might have caused damage beyond repair. Control, this time, had prevailed. Moonlight filtered through the window. She stood still, reflecting on the day. A quiet thought surfaced: someone had protected her. Alan prepares for flight during the cultural festival, checking his gear as the aircraft lifts off. Later, he carefully secures a large package, noting the perfect temperature for transport. Every detail has been calculated, freshness must be preserved. Crowds begin pouring into the bustling festival grounds. Among the attractions, a themed cafe draws attention, blending entertainment with student effort. Inside, Anastasia stands poised while Margaret informs her that preparations are complete. Anastasia agrees to explore the exhibits. They walk through the grounds, scanning the area. Following directions from the committee, they approach the next location, eyes catching movement ahead. At a bustling stall, a student enthusiastically promoted roasted orc meat, drawing attention with its unusual presentation. Margaret, intrigued by the aroma, struggled to hide her appetite. Anastasia observed her reaction and noted her familiarity with the dish, which was considered a specialty in her homeland. Despite its appeal, many students hesitated. The concept of eating monster meat unsettled them, even as curiosity lingered in their eyes. Sensing Margaret's interest, Anastasia asked her to accompany her elsewhere, a quiet determination behind her smile. Meanwhile, the vendor questioned if nobles found the display distasteful. He'd left the orc whole to attract attention, but few dared approach. While savoring his own dish, Alan admitted he set up the stall just to enjoy orc meat himself. He planned to deliver leftovers to the guild later. Unexpectedly, Anastasia arrived with Margaret and requested a skewer. Alan straightened up in surprise, unprepared for their sudden interest. As he asked about Margaret, Anastasia introduced her proudly. Margaret confirmed her identity, standing confidently beside her friend. Margaret requested her own skewer, mentioning her high standards when it came to orc cuisine. Her expression was earnest. Examining the meat, she asked its origin. Alan confirmed it was from Altmund, pleasing Margaret, who recognized it as her hometown's delicacy. Margaret took her first bite and was overwhelmed by the flavor. The texture was crisp yet tender, seasoned only with salt, making every bite unforgettable. Anastasia questioned the source of the premium meat. Margaret admired the quality and affordability, noting how perfectly it had been prepared. Alan responded vaguely, hinting at a secret method of acquisition. Though he avoided specifics, he admitted to using his adventurer status to make it possible. Margaret confidently evaluated the meat's traits. Its firmness and lack of odor confirmed its freshness and high grade. Watching her enthusiasm, bystanders grew curious. Her vivid praise and reaction drew more attention than the meat itself. As the enticing aroma spread, students began crowding the stall. Alan received rapid-fire orders, trying to keep up as demand soared. With the crowd building, Margaret suggested they leave. Anastasia nodded in agreement, watching Alan get busier by the minute. Before departing, they exchanged smiles. Alan thanked them sincerely, while Margaret teased him about how fun the encounter had been. Alan invited them back for the orc dismantling show. Margaret declined, but Anastasia, curious, entertained the idea briefly. Despite the rush, Alan still wondered about Anastasia's group. He planned to visit them once the afternoon slowed down. Thanks to the crowd drawn by Anastasia and Margaret, Alan managed to sell out by morning. With the shop closed, he decided to explore the festival. His first stop was the exhibit hosted by Anastasia's group. Curious, and with time to spare, he stepped inside. Surprisingly, the room was empty. There was no receptionist, and the displays stood unattended. He skimmed through the exhibition, which depicted a commoner's diet in the royal capital, an elaborate spread labeled as typical meals. The descriptions painted an idealized view: children fed well, meals rich with vegetables and meat. Alan silently questioned its accuracy. Alan reviewed the remaining displays, noting their polished presentation of education and safety. While well arranged, something about it felt disconnected from reality. Nearby, another exhibit caught his attention, this one featuring embroidery. Intrigued, he paused to explore it before returning. To his surprise, Margaret greeted him warmly at the entrance. She invited him inside, revealing that this was her group's work. Inside, he found Anastasia, dressed in traditional attire. Her sudden presence caught him off guard. Anastasia explained her situation. After being removed from her original group, Margaret had welcomed her in to showcase her embroidery. Despite her disappointment, encouraged Alan to explore the room. She redirected her focus toward broader thoughts of the country's future. Margaret proudly pointed out her piece. Alan, though unfamiliar with embroidery, admired the complexity of her floral patterns. He continued through the display. The delicate stitching on each garment reflected nobility and care. All of it beautifully done. She revealed another piece, Anastasia's. Its simple charm stood out, depicting a plate with fruit and dessert. Alan chuckled, admitting he got hungry just looking at it. The scene drew smiles all around. Caught off guard by the compliment, she lowered her gaze, cheeks flushed with emotion. A quiet icy escaped her lips. He quickly tried to rephrase his words, flustered by how strange they had sounded. She nodded, still unsure how to respond. Margaret reminded them it was nearly time to head for the auditorium. A sense of closure settled over the group. Before leaving, she grew self-conscious about her chosen artwork. Embarrassed, it revealed her sweet tooth. He thanked them and quietly took his leave. Inside the auditorium, the cultural festival's final results were about to be revealed. Anticipation filled the air. Crown Prince Karl-Heinz and his group presented their award-winning exhibit. Their focus was the poor, portrayed through interviews and staged visuals. As they accepted the award, the prince credited the idea to Amy, smiling for the crowd while expressing gratitude. Alan remained still, his gaze fixed on a plate of untouched food, intended to depict poverty. It had likely been discarded without thought. Disappointment sank in. That speech, shallow and hollow, came from the future king. Something was deeply wrong, but one crisis remained. The condemnation of Anastasia loomed. Winter was coming, and Alan had to act. Sitting alone, he recalled the original plot. In the game, Anastasia and her followers harassed the heroine, culminating in a violent fall down the stairs. Things were unfolding too fast. The relationship between Karl and Anastasia had already dissolved, diverging from the expected route. Despite the timeline, Anastasia hadn't done anything. Yet in the original scenario, her actions were scripted as unavoidable. If no harassment occurred, there would be no basis for her exile. That single event was the linchpin. He held on to hope. Without conflict, the engagement could simply end, and Anastasia might finally find her own happiness. Gossip spread quickly. Rumors accused Anastasia of stealing Amy's pen and setting it on fire out of jealousy. He froze. Had the event already started? Despite all efforts, fate seemed to be following the original script. Confrontation erupted in the hallway. A crowd formed as accusations were hurled, painting Amy as the innocent victim. Standing firm, Anastasia denied the charges. She demanded proof, asserting neither she nor her friends ever acted maliciously. Despite her defense, whispers intensified. Alan watched silently, realizing just how deeply the narrative was sinking in. Leonardo reached out to stop her, but she pulled away coldly. As a duke's daughter, she reminded him of their status gap. Frustration rose. He barked accusations, demanding a guilty plea. She countered sharply, refusing to bow to pressure. Suddenly, Alan stepped in. Calmly, he interrupted the scene and urged everyone to return to class, diffusing the rising hostility. Before Anastasia could respond, he excused himself. She watched him go, conflicted but grateful. Doubts lingered in Alan's mind. Had Amy orchestrated the incident? If so, the event's path toward condemnation might be unavoidable. Amy smirked, quietly delighted. Everything was following the game's script. Even Leo's reaction matched perfectly, despite knowing the status gap. Celebration filled the grand hall. Crown Prince Karl-Heinz prepared to speak at the promotion and graduation ceremony. He accepted the honor with a smile, praising those who supported him. A polished performance for the crowd. Alan watched silently, amid the applause. A classmate called out to him, introducing the girl at his side. She smiled warmly. Isabella von Leeuwenberg would be joining his class next term. Alan, however, sensed his time here might be limited. The Crown Prince praised his companions and claimed his achievements were thanks to their support. With a confident tone, he prepared to deliver an unexpected announcement. In front of the crowd, he called Anastasia's name. Alan stiffened as she stepped forward, sensing the start of the condemnation. Before the gathered students, Anastasia faced the prince, who declared their engagement was over. Anastasia remained composed. Calmly, She questioned whether the prince truly understood the responsibilities of nobility or the nation's future. Meanwhile, Amy looked confused as another student goaded her to express more outrage. The prince angrily insisted she was misunderstood. He then embraced Amy, praising her kindness and healing powers while calling Anastasia rotten. Others joined in, eager to see Anastasia condemned, but Anastasia stood tall, asking if the prince would bear the consequences. Her response was unexpectedly calm, far from the predicted breakdown. From the steps above, sharp words were hurled at Anastasia, mocking her family's pride. Observers whispered about her supposed arrogance. Laughter erupted as the prince insulted her heritage, branding her lineage as lowly farmers unfit for nobility. Accusations continued from both the prince and Amy, while he insisted his insults were truthful. Anastasia calmly stated her objection not for herself, but for her family. Amy lashed out, calling her actions cowardly. In response, Anastasia suggested formal protest, masking her disappointment with composure. Choosing dignity, she turned away. Despite protests, she maintained control. The final question challenged her resolve and hinted at a deeper decision. Anastasia explained calmly that her gloves were not to be used for petty disputes. Her tone remained firm but composed. Mocking words echoed across the hall. The prince ridiculed her family's honor, claiming even her father failed in raising her. His arrogance stirred whispers from nearby nobles. Anastasia considered whether a duel was what he truly wanted, silently weighing her next step. She walked forward with unwavering resolve, ignoring Amy's jeers. Her silence held more power than any insult thrown at her. Finally, she cast the glove toward Amy's feet. The hall fell silent as the challenge was unmistakably made. Amy grinned with glee, convinced that Anastasia's defeat was certain. She saw the glove fall and misread the situation as a win. Rather than retaliating with emotion, Anastasia calmly questioned the insults thrown at her, unfazed by the provocation. Confusion spread as a duel was announced. Some students suspected Amy of orchestrating the setup. Tension filled the room. With a confident smile, the prince stepped in to fight on Amy's behalf, declaring it his duty to protect her. Anastasia challenged the hypocrisy. Though he claimed to defend Amy, it was clear who had initiated the duel. Support for Amy surged, with multiple students volunteering to represent her. Pressure mounted as Anastasia was asked if anyone would fight for her. Laughter erupted when no one stepped forward until Alan raised his hand. His clear voice echoed as he volunteered to stand by her side. Descending the stairs in disbelief, she rushed to confront him. The idea of Alan challenging royalty left her shaken. Desperation broke through her composure. She pleaded for him to reconsider, believing he shouldn't involve himself in such dangerous matters. With confidence, Alan urged her to accept, overwhelmed. She hesitated, then began to speak. Before she could take back her words, someone shouted that she had accepted. Regret flickered across her face as Alan confirmed it. Surprised, the prince failed to recognize him. Alan calmly reminded him they were classmates who had once shared conversations, pressed for terms. Alan requested a formal apology and retraction of insults aimed at the Ramslet family. She supported the demand. Those who sided with Amy rejected Alan entirely. Each declared they wanted nothing to do with him or Anastasia. 5 opponents stood ready. With no allies yet, Alan now faced the burden of finding 4 others or winning alone. Laughter erupted as Alan dismissed the challenge's rules. Rather than finding allies, he asked to face all 5 opponents at once. A bold smirk accompanied his challenge, suggesting that maybe the prince feared him. The jab quickly wiped the grin from the prince's face. One of the nobles barked a threat. Another scoffed at Alan's lack of skills in combat and magic. Criticism rained from every side. Each opponent was called out, one for threats, another for relying on status, and a third for academic failure. Despite Anastasia's plea, Alan held his ground. No intention to flee, he stood ready. Even if the odds were 5-1, tears welled in her eyes. Confusion took hold as she questioned why Alan would make things worse by provoking his enemies further. From afar, Amy watched with disbelief. None of this matched the game's original path. This was an unpredictable anomaly. Visions of a doomed past flashed through her mind. In that world, a powerless commoner died protecting a noble he cherished. Yet Alan didn't flinch. He demanded a decision from the prince: accept the unfair terms, or back down. Reluctantly, the challenge was accepted. With tension rising, Anastasia insisted on one condition: no one would die in this duel, no matter the outcome. With a smile, Alan thanked her for the reminder. Some scoffed at the condition, but others reluctantly agreed, deeming it less messy. The prince called for a witness to oversee the duel. From the crowd, a volunteer raised his hand, ready to take the role. A tall man stepped forward, familiar to Alan, though his intentions were unclear. He formally offered to witness the duel. Time was set. With only 30 minutes to prepare, Alan accepted without protest, suspecting bias in every move. As the challengers stormed off, Alan remained calm. Even as others called after him, he quietly reassured himself it was still worth it. Alan's calm smile baffled everyone. While Anastasia and her friends urged him to reconsider, he simply responded with a quiet good concerned voices, warned of the risks. They suspected the rules might be ignored if he were harmed, yet Alan remained composed. Tears welled in Anastasia's eyes as she begged him to withdraw. She couldn't bear to see someone with potential fall for her sake. He deflected the worry with a smile. Rumors of a young adventurer reached the group, and Alan revealed the truth. Was that adventurer the goblin and orc slayer, survivor of countless battles far from ordinary? Confidence shone on Alan's face. He reassured them with a calm farewell, claiming victory was already certain. Her breath caught as he walked away. Doubt, awe, and fear stirred behind her wide eyes. From the shadows, a girl watched. Confusion filled her thoughts. This scene wasn't part of the game she knew. Still, she clung to belief. Carl's victory was assured. Alan, in her eyes, remained a fool chasing affection. Regardless of outcome, she concluded one thing: Anastasia would suffer, either through defeat or by watching her protector fall. Amy watched with twisted delight, convinced the story would favor her. As the heroine, she believed fate itself was on her side. Gasps echoed when Alan stepped into view. Equipped with only a dagger, his entrance shocked the crowd, even as worried voices questioned his choice. He approached the arena confidently and addressed the prince without fear. Kneeling, he vowed to win not for pride, but for Anastasia. His sincerity left her speechless. The duel was officially declared with rising tension. Weapons were drawn. The world prepared to watch a commoner defy expectations. As the duel began, Amy's ally charged recklessly. Alan, standing calm and unarmed, slowly reached for his dagger with a quiet smile. In a flash, a massive explosion engulfed the field. Spectators gasped, stunned by the sudden overwhelming power. A dense smokescreen bursts across the battlefield as 3 students brace themselves. Weapons drawn, they face the cloud, uncertain of what lies beyond it. Chaos erupts among the spectators. Confusion spreads as they realize it's a smokescreen. Students squint through the clearing smoke. Visibility slowly returns. 2 figures lie unconscious on the ground, and more silhouettes emerge. As the smoke fades, a lone boy stands surrounded by fallen elites. Onlookers recognize the collapsed figures, royalty, and nobles, triggering alarm. Even Crown Prince Karl-Heinz and Marcus are down. Survivors cough and stagger. The atmosphere shifts. Something irreversible has just occurred. Alan reveals the unconscious figures on the ground, forcing everyone to witness the results of the clash. Pressuring a noble, he demands acknowledgement of his victory, holding a blade to a fallen student as others look on in shock. Among the crowd, Anastasia calls out to Alan, her expression mixed with disbelief and awe at his swift action. Before the battle began, Alan had activated a smokescreen and vanished using a stealth technique, catching his opponents off guard, blinded by smoke. The enemy fumbled in confusion, unable to locate Alan as tension rose with each second lost. Alan confronted the brawny opponent directly, calmly aiming the gun he'd previously used to stop thieves. Loaded with non-lethal rounds, the weapon wouldn't kill, but the impact was strong enough to cause serious damage. Sweat dripped from his face as he activated a second smokescreen, pain flaring across his body from the strain. Caught off guard, Marcus the mage was enveloped in smoke, his panic growing with every uncertain second. While the mage hesitated, Alan moved swiftly through the haze, preparing for his next target, Leonardo. Desperate to regain visibility, the swordsman called for wind to disperse the smoke. Relief crossed his face as the air began to clear. Meanwhile, Oscar, the elite archer, drew his bow amidst the coughing, hoping to land a clean shot despite the haze. However, even his skill couldn't overcome the obscured vision. His aim faltered, and frustration overtook him. Crown Prince Karl-Heinz, a powerful offensive mage, scoured the battlefield, furious and accusing others while searching for Alan. The prince swung his sword recklessly through the smoke, forcing Alan to hold back, wary of harming nearby students. News spread across the field. Leonardo, Claude, and Oscar had all been defeated. Spectators stood stunned at the scene. Gasps echoed through the crowd. One girl, overwhelmed, could only repeat her disbelief as tension gripped the onlookers. Alan stood silently among the chaos. Names of legendary talents echoed in contrast, yet none had managed to stop him. Tears filled her eyes as she cried out. Her world, once predictable, now teetered on the edge of collapse. Conflicted, Anastasia called Alan's name. Her voice trembled with awe and fear, questioning what he truly was beneath the surface. Alan stood firm before the crowd, explaining how Oscar had yielded and how the others were already down. Only two opponents remained. Marcus and the Crown Prince, both central figures in the nation's future, lay unconscious. In the game's world, their political roles were irreplaceable. Faced with defeat, Marcus resorted to veiled threats. He warned Alan of the consequences, trying to invoke his family's influence. Alan questioned his motives calmly, pointing out how he always used status when cornered. His words struck deeper than any blow. With unwavering resolve, he reminded Marcus of the truth behind the duel and challenged him to recognize the real injustice. Marcus tried to justify his actions, claiming it was to protect Amy, but Alan swiftly exposed the baseless accusation. Amy, watching from the sidelines, grew desperate. Her calls for Marcus to retaliate revealed her panic as the truth surfaced. Alan responded firmly, demanding an apology for the harm done to Anastasia. His words condemned Marcus's short-sightedness and pride. Suddenly, Alan delivered a decisive blow. Marcus staggered backward, the slap echoing louder than any magic could have. Lying on the ground, Marcus was declared defeated. Alan stood tall, and the broken glasses symbolized the end of the confrontation. Shock spread across the crowd as students whispered the commoner had already defeated 4 noble elites in succession. Alan shifted focus to the final opponent. Crown Prince Karl-Heinz, though still standing, was visibly shaken and weakened. The prince, sweating and furious, accused Alan of using cowardly tactics and demanded a fair fight without tools. Unfazed, Alan responded with composure. He reminded the prince that it was he who had forced Anastasia into this public duel. Karl-Heinz tried to justify his actions, but Alan pressed on, exposing the baseless nature of the accusations against Anastasia. Alan raised his voice before the crowd, declaring the accusations against Anastasia to be entirely unfounded and baseless. He explained how Anastasia had only filed a fair complaint, revealing that she had done nothing deserving of blame. Prince Karl-Heinz attempted to deflect responsibility, muttering a weak protest, while others began to question the truth behind Amy's role. Frustration burst forth from the prince. He shouted at Alan, blaming his royal burden and societal expectations for his actions. His voice turned possessive and bitter. He confessed that Amy made him feel seen, his emotions twisting into obsession and delusion. Alan acknowledged that even the crown prince had been manipulated. Amy, with knowledge of the game's structure, had approached him strategically. He turned to Anastasia, praising her for her loyalty and strength. Despite the engagement, she had worked tirelessly for the kingdom. But the prince had neglected her, choosing to chase other women. Alan's accusation struck hard as the prince tried to shut him down. Defensive and emotional, the prince lashed out. He claimed royalty came with burdens, unlike the freedom commoners enjoyed. Amy retaliated, mocking Alan's ideals. She insisted if commoner life was so noble, they should both run away and live it. Alan described the harsh reality of his upbringing: dirty ditches, hard labor, stale food, and survival on mere scraps. He stepped forward with conviction, shouting for the prince to stop acting entitled and face the truth of others' suffering. Surrounded by fallen nobles, Alan stood alone in the arena as the crowd silently watched the confrontation unfold. With steady resolve, he reminded the prince of his duty. As future king, he should have acted for the people, not himself. The prince lowered his head, overwhelmed, realizing he had neglected both his position and Anastasia's devotion. Alan stood in silence as the atmosphere shifted. Anastasia approached, but neither spoke of what came next. He declared the duel over, his expression calm. She looked at him with concern as he turned away. From behind, the prince began casting forbidden magic. Anastasia recognized the spell unstable and far too dangerous. Fueled by desperation, the prince unleashed the attack. Alan remained unaware as the glowing orb surged toward him. With determination in his eyes, Alan summoned a swirling mass of energy, channeling every ounce of strength he had. Not far away, a girl observed the chaos unfolding. Doubt filled her mind. Her ice magic alone might not be fast or strong enough to contain the threat. Suddenly she cried out Alan's name. Fear etched across her face as his silhouette began to vanish behind the overwhelming surge of power. His opponent didn't flinch. With swift precision, a counterattack was unleashed, colliding violently with Alan's magic and hurling him backward. People scrambled for cover, and Alan's motionless body fell to the ground, battered and still. Alan exhaled, finally letting his guard down as the tension faded. A voice called out, snapping him back to the moment as attention shifted to him. Across the field, the defeated opponent struggled to remain conscious. Blood seeped through his shirt while a girl desperately tried to support him, panic rising among the witnesses. The announcer stepped forward, declaring the outcome without hesitation. With Karl-Heinz incapacitated, Alan was officially recognized as the winner of the duel. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Students celebrated Alan's triumph, and astonished voices praised his unexpected victory. Among the spectators, a girl dropped to her knees. Her expression wavered, shocked, uncertain, and overwhelmed by the turn of events. Confusion clouded her expression as reality settled in. She struggled to grasp how everything had unraveled so quickly before her eyes. Kneeling in silence, she questioned her decisions. Despite believing she was the rightful protagonist, doubt crept into her heart. Meanwhile, Alan knelt before Anastasia, humbly offering his victory in her name, surrounded by stunned onlookers. Her response was gentle, mixed with surprise and appreciation. Though touched by his gesture, her mind wandered to deeper concerns. Even with chaos averted, Anastasia remained grounded. She focused not on triumph, but on the future of the country, and those who depended on her. Alan bowed respectfully before Anastasia and the others, offering heartfelt thanks for their support and guidance. Surprised by his sudden farewell, Anastasia and her companions called out, unable to hide their concern as he turned to leave. A nearby official stepped in, requesting confirmation to formally close the duel proceedings. The outcome was clear, but protocol still needed to be followed. Burdened by guilt, she acknowledged her responsibility, knowing she had started the duel and could not walk away from the aftermath. As she watched Alan from a distance, a mix of regret and quiet resolve stirred within her. Anastasia dashed through the hallways, her breath growing heavier with every step. Urgency drove her forward, pushing her to find answers. Memories of Alan's words echoed in her mind, confusion and frustration bubbled up. She couldn't understand why he had spoken as if it were a farewell. Upon entering his room, she froze. The space was empty, beds neatly arranged, chairs untouched. Turning to the nearby staff, she demanded to know Alan's whereabouts. Her voice wavered between anxiety and disbelief. The maid responded gently. The room had been vacant for some time. Alan had already prepared his departure, long before the duel had ended. Anastasia stood frozen in place as she caught a final glimpse of Alan among the crowd. His figure drifted farther away, silent and determined. Meanwhile, Alan returned to his modest home, weighed down by memories and bags. That evening, they sat together at the table. Alan confessed everything: the unfairness, the danger, and his decision to stand up for someone in need. His mother listened quietly, her expression calm. She hadn't expected this path, but accepted it without blame. With a gentle smile, she praised his courage. Though his future was uncertain, she saw how much her son had matured through it all. Worry clouded his thoughts. What had started as a school duel now involved nobles and royalty, a situation spiraling beyond a mere expulsion. A gentle voice broke the tension. She insisted he run if danger came, prioritizing his life over honor. Her concern cut through his guilt. Night settled in. The house grew quiet as he climbed to the loft, her words still fresh in his mind. Sleep didn't come easily, doubts crept in. Could he protect her? Could he fix what had already gone so wrong? Eyes stared into the darkness above. He didn't want to lose what he had fought for. If trouble came, he had to be ready. Creaking steps echoed in the loft as his mother slowly climbed up. Both sat quietly under the moonlight. From the window, castle towers gleamed in the distance, visible like a lingering reminder of what had happened. Memories surfaced. She gently remarked how long it had been since they shared a moment like this, warmth returning to her voice, as she praised the strength she saw in him. He confessed his regrets, admitting that he may have dragged others into consequences meant only for him. Helping someone in need just like his father had once done proved he had inherited more than just his name. Moonlight spilled through the window as sleep crept in. His thoughts lingered on the father. He never knew, wondering what kind of man he had been. A strong declaration broke the silence. If anyone came for her son, king or noble, she'd fight them all. No fear in her words, just pure resolve. Tears welled up as guilt surfaced. Yet her reply came without hesitation. He had done his best. No shame in his actions. With a sigh, she declared she'd sleep beside him, shifting slightly. He protested, confused, flustered, but secretly comforted. Morning followed. At the wash basin, he muttered a reminder that she had her own room. Fresh air filled his lungs as he finished drying off. A good night's rest had cleared the storm of doubt that had clouded his thoughts. From the window, things didn't seem so grim. His intervention had stopped Anastasia's banishment, prevented civil war, and stalled an invasion from abroad. Heading downstairs, he was greeted with warmth and a familiar voice. Tension lingered, but so did a quiet sense of calm. Breakfast brought a sense of normalcy. He didn't know how long peace would last, but for now, being home felt real. Knocking broke the calm. Curiosity turned into caution. Only one day had passed, but trouble, it seemed, never waited long. Empty hallway greeted him after the knock. No one seemed to be there, but something didn't sit right. Without warning, a force tackled him from behind. Breath stolen, balance lost, arms wrapped tight around his head. The visitor turned out to be Monica, cheerful and completely unbothered. Her lively presence filled the room like a morning storm. She dropped by from the market with fresh vegetables and familiar smiles. More friends were waiting downstairs, and old memories stirred as he followed. Outside, familiar faces greeted him warmly. Time hadn't dulled their bonds. Not all returns had to be filled with conflict. Playful teasing broke out among the old friends. They wrapped arms around his shoulders, tossing out wild guesses about why he returned. None close to the truth. Familiar faces faded back into town life, unaware of the weight he'd been carrying. At the doorway, she asked the question he expected. No, he hadn't told them anything. Better that way, at least for now. Explaining further would drag others into danger. Some stories were better left unspoken until the time was right. Suddenly, a carriage rolled in, elegant, out of place, and far too early for any visit. Suspicion crept in again. Peace never seemed to last long. A carriage arrived without any official markings. He scanned for guards but saw none, easing his tension slightly. At the door, a well-dressed man confirmed his identity. His mother stood quietly beside him. The visitor introduced himself as a butler from House Ramslet. Alan was stunned. Anastasia's family had summoned him directly. Alan stood in shock as a carriage from the noble Ramslet family arrived, summoning him by name. The messenger, serving the Duke, assured Alan's mother that her son was in no danger and praised him as a benefactor to the young lady of the house. Despite his mother's hesitation, Alan calmly reassured her and went to change clothes as the nobleman waited outside. Once ready, Alan departed in the carriage, its wheels echoing down the stone-paved street. Inside, Alan sat opposite the nobleman, quiet and composed as their journey toward the Duke's residence began. Alan gazed out the carriage window, astonished by the elegance of the aristocratic district surrounding him. The carriage slowed as they arrived at the grand residence of the Duke of Ramslet, guarded by towering gates and ornate architecture. Inside, he was led to a lavish reception room, where a maid served him tea while he waited as instructed. Seated alone, Alan observed the refined surroundings, realizing the immense influence and status the Ramslet family held. With trembling hands, he steadied his breath and urged himself to stay composed for the meeting ahead. Inside the waiting room, Alan reflected on the crucial meeting ahead and pondered how much support he could gain from the Ramslet family. The door opened, and a large man with commanding presence entered, prompting Alan to straighten up. With a calm expression, the man greeted him and confirmed his identity, establishing familiarity. Alan respectfully introduced himself and accepted the offer to sit as the nobleman gestured toward the seat. Introducing himself as Gerhard, the head of the Ramslet dukedom, the man expressed regret for the sudden summons. Gerhard leaned back as he acknowledged Alan's role in aiding his daughter the day before. He offered sincere thanks, recognizing Alan's bold duel with royalty on behalf of his daughter. With a thoughtful pause, the Duke requested to ask questions, prompting Alan's surprise and polite agreement. Revealed he had investigated Alan's background, an adventurer famed for conquering the Goblin Labyrinth and known by a fearsome title. Listing Alan's achievements, he questioned the young man's motive for fighting such a risky duel, suspecting romantic interest in his daughter. Prepared for consequences, Alan explained his actions, expressing deep respect for Anastasia's perseverance. Acknowledging the gap in social standing, he still spoke firmly, aware of his own limitations. Gerhard questioned his decision, reminding him of the effort it took to reach his current position. Rather than speak of ambition, Alan declared his desire to protect those who supported and raised him. Surprised, Gerhard sipped his tea and called the duel absurd, yet admitted he had heard every detail. Although Alan acknowledged that a duel was still a duel, he insisted that Anastasia would never harm the prince herself. He explained that her defeat was inevitable due to her nature, and the opposing party demanded she stay away from His Highness and others. Gerhard, while sipping tea, agreed with the logic, stating she would have been expelled for something she didn't do. If such treatment could befall a duke's daughter, Alan warned, then no noble was safe from unjust removal. With tension rising, he predicted chaos and bloodshed, unless these actions were addressed. Gerhard raised his hand, acknowledging the warning while trying to slow the conversation. Gerhard leaned forward, questioning how the royal succession crisis could possibly relate to protecting one's family. Without hesitation, Alan responded, voicing his concern for the future of the Estonian kingdom as a whole. The Duke's eyes narrowed, quietly acknowledging how far the young man had thought things through. Alan admitted his understanding came only from reading newspapers. After a brief pause, Gerhard offered to take responsibility for Alan's situation and ensure the safety of his mother. Standing tall, he declared that Alan now had the Ramslet family's full support. Any future trouble could be brought directly to them. Gerhard called for Sebas to escort Alan back home comfortably, prompting a grateful bow from the boy with polite formality. Alan excused himself. Gerhard silently watched his departure, his expression unreadable, standing alone. The Duke reflected on Alan's strength, a commoner, who had overcome nobles blessed with divine protection. Quiet admiration replaced his earlier skepticism. From petty school disputes to matters of national security, Alan's thinking had matured. Gerhard recognized the depth of insight Anna had spoken of. That same night, frantic cries echoed through the estate. A young woman's voice pleaded urgently for her father to listen, marking the beginning of another turning point. Caught off guard by Anna's sudden return, questioned her unexpected appearance as servants attended to him. Breathless and determined, she insisted she had something important to tell him. Urgency etched across her face. In another room, voices discussed His Highness's apparent decline, expressing disbelief at how far things had deteriorated. Gerhard turned serious, reflecting on the duel. He admitted that Alan had faced the school's most formidable opponents alone, something nearly impossible to believe. Anna began to explain, introducing Alan as a classmate from modest origins. Despite his background, he had enrolled through merit and a scholarship. He listened silently, as Anna praised Alan's many feats. From defeating dangerous monsters to mastering powerful magic, the boy's abilities stood out far beyond expectation. Her flustered expression didn't escape notice. A teasing question followed, asking if she'd fallen in love. Embarrassment took over as her brother chimed in with a smirk. Despite the momentary teasing, Gerhard turned serious again. Maintaining her engagement to His Highness, he said, would now be nearly impossible. Anna acknowledged the truth quietly. The path ahead would be difficult. Turning to Sebas, Gerhard asked more about the scholarship student. He learned Alan was raised solely by his mother in the capital. Recognition settled in. If those words were true, then Alan wasn't just gifted, he was a rare genius the nation couldn't afford to lose. With a short sigh, Gerhard acknowledged her concerns. Time was late, further discussion could wait. Before leaving, Anna paused. Hesitation gave way to sincerity as she softly asked her father to consider Alan's place. Staring through the tall windows, frustration built. Her situation with His Highness was becoming too tangled to ignore. Just as he turned, her voice came again. Steady steps into the room affirmed her words. That boy, she insisted, truly matched every expectation she'd described. A reckless response to provocation had dragged Alan into a conflict that risked escalating far beyond school walls. Regret lingered in the room as her mother confessed her shame about the entire situation with His Highness. Gentle arms wrapped around Anna. No words were needed. Across the room, Gerhard's voice broke the silence. He would visit the royal palace himself. As Duke, he vowed to shield Alan. Tears fell as Anna gave a faint nod, acknowledging that his decision was what she had hoped for all along. Outside the mansion, stillness returned. Understanding had been reached, and a new path was beginning to take shape. A quiet carriage awaited outside the estate gates. Alan was told Anastasia wouldn't be meeting anyone that day. Thoughts clouded his mind as the carriage pulled away. No goodbyes. No answers. Regret followed closely behind, whispering that maybe she resented him now. Despite surviving the ordeal, satisfaction never came. Fate had shifted, but the road ahead remained long and uncertain. Days later, a voice called from downstairs. Someone had come to visit, and his mother called him down with a warm smile. At the door stood the same man who once brought life-changing news. Familiar words greeted him. It had been a while. A formal invitation arrived, asking Alan to attend dinner the next day. Shock struck him upon hearing Anastasia would be present. Outside the grand estate, Alan adjusts his uniform, while his mother hesitates nearby, visibly uneasy about her modest attire. The difference in status weighs on her. Once inside, Alan calmly reassures her. Thanks to the host's thoughtful gesture, formal clothing isn't required, easing some of her discomfort. He silently acknowledges her worry. After all, it's rare for ordinary citizens like them to be invited to dine with nobility. The Duke greets them with a welcoming smile. Alan introduces his mother, who politely thanks him for the honor of their presence. Grateful in return, the Duke expresses appreciation for Alan's support of his daughter. His respectful tone puts Katerina gently at ease. The Duke introduces his wife, Elizabeth, and their son, Friedrich. Both offer polite greetings, presenting themselves with warmth and poise. Elizabeth smiles, gracefully, as she acknowledges Alan's presence. Alan bows, respectfully introducing himself while expressing gratitude for the invitation. A calm voice interrupts the exchange. Anastasia enters the room with quiet elegance, drawing Alan's attention immediately, as he mutters her name in surprise. Without warning, she commands Alan to follow. The unexpected order stuns the surrounding guests as Alan is pulled away. Down the hall, Anastasia corners Alan, gripping his collar tightly. Her expression remains unreadable as silence hangs between them. Anastasia lashes out at Alan, her voice sharp as she confronts him over his sudden disappearance, demanding an explanation. Caught off guard, Alan stammers an apology, unsure whether her anger stems from concern or resentment. The tension softens slightly. Anastasia quietly thanks him for defending her in the duel, while Alan expresses happiness at seeing her again. Their awkward reunion draws attention. Laughter erupts nearby, and someone comments on how close the two seem, embarrassing them both. Soon after, they return together. Anastasia apologizes for the delay, regaining her composure before the gathered nobles. Elizabeth cheerfully shares how worried Anastasia had been, even revealing she cried late at night over Alan's disappearance. Anastasia quickly denies it, visibly flustered. Alan freezes as Elizabeth presses him for a reaction. Her teasing tone catches him off guard, leaving him unsure how to respond, trying to recover. Alan asks if he may call her Anna, embarrassed. Anastasia allows it, but only when others aren't around. Moments later, she briskly changes the subject and leads the group toward the dining hall with Sabas following. Deciding to express his emotions more openly, instead of hiding behind a reserved FAA, Everyone gathers around the dinner table as the Duke addresses Alan, requesting a full account of the recent incident. Calmly, he explains the outcome of the duel. An official apology will be made at the Academy's opening ceremony, where many witnesses can hear it. While sipping his drink, the Duke announces the engagement between the Crown Prince and his daughter is now formally annulled. A quiet request follows: continue supporting Anastasia, not just as an ally, but as a trusted companion. Smiling gently, the Duke assures there will be no punishment or expulsion awaiting Alan at school. A generous offer is made: Alan may join their household after graduation or be introduced to valuable connections. The Duke urges him to enjoy school life first. Tears well up in Katerina's eyes. She expresses sincere gratitude for the kindness shown to her son. Reassured and comforted, she's gently encouraged by those around her, grateful beyond words for the unexpected warmth. Anastasia smiles softly, promising to rely on Alan again in the coming year. He responds with quiet enthusiasm. As dinner begins, laughter and conversation fill the room. A once formal gathering now feels like a shared celebration. A quiet moment at the table brings Alan peace. He reflects with pride on his efforts, finally feeling that everything was worth it. At the carriage, gratitude is exchanged. The Duke assures Alan and his mother they are welcome any time, parting with warmth. Before they can leave, Anastasia pulls Alan aside, asking for a private word. Elizabeth offers to guide Katerina through the garden in the meantime, with confidence. Anastasia requests Alan's help exploring the newly discovered Altman labyrinth. Margaret will accompany her as well. Hearing the name shocks him, memories resurface, and his expression stiffens. Something dangerous may be hidden ahead. Anastasia questions the labyrinth's depth, still officially unknown. Alan hesitates, wondering if he should admit his past exploration before it was publicly discovered. Surprised by her reaction, he confesses he found it long ago during his travels through the jungle. She covers her face, realizing he never reported it. Alan downplays the discovery, saying there were no traps and only a minor boss at the end. Curious and confused, Anastasia asks about fast laps. Alan explains it's a method to train efficiently based on repeated runs. He breaks it down, completing the labyrinth, returning, then repeating the process to increase strength. Anastasia pauses mid-sentence, flustered by Alan's calm presence. He notices and gently asks what's wrong, but she brushes it off. Their conversation shifts to planning. Alan agrees to guide them through the labyrinth, and they decide to organize it after the new year. Upon arriving at Altman, Margaret greets them. She shares that other adventurers may have already started exploring, but there is still a chance for them. Margaret praises Alan's strength and even suggests scouting him. Her confidence leaves him surprised. Playfully, she reassures Anastasia that she wouldn't dream of taking her precious knight. Flustered, Anastasia denies the implication. Alan casually admits he already collected the treasure from the orc labyrinth, though apologetic. He jokes about giving it all away, drawing a reaction. A group of adult adventurers questions his qualifications. They're surprised to learn Margaret chose a student as their guide. Skepticism continues until one mentions Alan's past feats, conquering the Goblin Labyrinth and earning the title of Orc Slayer. Alan proposes a skill test to determine roles. Confidently, the men assure they'll protect Margaret, causing Alan to silently question their capability. Together, the party enters the labyrinth. Alan instructs them to engage the orcs directly, ready to assist if needed. Distrust hangs in the air. Alan senses the group's hesitation, realizing danger will follow if they refuse his commands mid-battle. a beast appears, almost immediately. One of the knights volunteers to lead the attack, but Alan stops him just in time. Without waiting, Alan steps forward himself. The others protest, unsure of what he's planning to do. Facing the enemy directly, Alan prepares to demonstrate his strength, determined to earn their trust through action. With a modern firearm in hand, he surprises everyone. As the creature charges, Alan readies his weapon, calm and focused. An enraged beast charges forward, baring its fangs and shaking the tunnel with its roar. Despite warnings, Alan kneels and raises his weapon, ignoring the shouting behind him. His focus remains locked on the approaching target. In a flash, he opens fire. The gunfire echoes through the corridor, and the beast collapses mid-charge. Stunned silence follows. Lowering his weapon, Alan exhales calmly. Shocked expressions surround him, questions pouring in about what they just witnessed. He explains the weapon is a magical tool, powered by wind magic, designed to fire iron bullets. Respect begins to replace doubt. Alan calmly signals for the group to proceed. The others, now cooperative, nod with respect and slight nervousness. Praise for his technique spreads. One knight admits relief that Alan is an ally, while Alan proposes they work together to protect both Margaret and Anastasia. As another monster approaches, one knight steps forward, eager to prove himself this time. With swift movements, Anastasia intervenes instead. Her precise strikes knock the beast back, stunning both the enemy and her allies. Finishing the attack with grace, she teases Alan. He smiles in admiration, acknowledging her superior swordsmanship born from training and divine blessing. Leadership shifts into motion as positions are assigned. Alan takes point. Anastasia follows close behind, while knights handle threats from the rear. Victory comes quickly. Orc bodies lie defeated, including their king, priest, and mage. Disbelief spreads some wonder if knighthood still suits them. A gesture points everyone toward the next chamber. Movement resumes as Alan suggests they prepare to exit. Margaret chuckles, admitting their over-reliance on one person. Appreciation fills outside the grand estate. Alan adjusts his uniform, while his mother hesitates nearby, visibly uneasy about her modest attire. The difference in status weighs on her. Once inside, Alan calmly reassures her. Thanks to the host's thoughtful gesture, formal clothing isn't required, easing some of her discomfort. He silently acknowledges her worry. After all, it's rare for ordinary citizens like them to be invited to dine with nobility. The Duke. Alan stood on stage as a bold declaration echoed through the hall. The name of the Duke of Ramslet carried weight, and all eyes turned to Alan. Earlier that day, Alan left home for school after winter break. He had made a decision, one that would alter the course of fate. As he walked through the city, Alan reflected on his actions. He had succeeded in preventing Anne's condemnation, breaking the game's scenario. Though he once knew the future, its certainty was gone. Now, he needed to think clearly to prevent disaster. But with the scenario shattered, new dangers loomed, and Alan questioned what awaited next. The Ramslet Duchy, known as the kingdom's primary source of grain, once stood as a crucial pillar supporting the crown prince's authority. Political balance crumbled after the duel, pushing southern nobles to potentially rally behind the Duke. Alan questioned his choice. Though he prevented one disaster, the nation's instability mirrored the chaos of the original game scenario. Suspicion now turned toward Amy. Her persistent ambition and cunning hinted at a new scheme, one possibly targeting Anna. Determined to protect those he cared about, Alan walked forward. No matter how twisted the future became, he vowed to secure a happy ending. Alan exchanged polite greetings with Isabella and Margaret, who were cheerful to discover they shared a class with him and Anna this semester. Their kindness was warmly received. With smiles all around, they pledged to support each other as classmates going forward. Knowing Anna would benefit from positive companionship, Alan felt reassured. Surrounded by friends, her school life would likely improve. However, whispers of contempt surfaced nearby. Some students criticized Alan for his past actions, calling his duel dishonorable. What surprised Alan most wasn't their reaction, but the class placements. Despite poor grades, the Crown Prince remained in class while others were quietly demoted. Alan noticed Claude's absence from the class list. Though no official reason was given, it appeared Claude had quietly dropped out. Soon after, Anastasia appeared and caught Alan off guard with her sudden presence. She reminded him firmly not to address her casually in public. As they walked, she spoke about her brother being away for work. Alan hesitated when asked if Claude was still enrolled. Anastasia clarified the situation. Claude's withdrawal was at the request of the Kingdom of Westerdale, raising further questions. Leonardo's situation was worse. He had been disowned by his family, possibly due to the consequences of the duel. The Ramslet family had lodged a formal protest against the Duke's family. Leonardo's refusal to admit fault left his family unable to shield him any longer. Anastasia reflected on the string of difficult events. Although troubling for her personally, the outcome brought stability and benefit to the kingdom. Redirecting the moment, she invited Alan to the auditorium. He acknowledged the day's significance. It was time for the opening ceremony. A formal apology from the Crown Prince and his allies was about to be delivered in front of everyone, as Anna had requested. When names were called, Anastasia stepped forward confidently. Alan, unexpectedly summoned, followed her toward the podium, unsure of what awaited him next. Anastasia turned to Alan and reminded him of his role. Having fought for her, he had earned the right to stand behind her during the apology. As names were called, one of the Crown Prince's companions stepped forward to the stage, his expression stiff under the eyes of the crowd. Standing firm, Anastasia demanded an answer. Would they finally acknowledge the outcome of the duel? Tension thickened as Alan observed their discomfort. The group appeared bitter, but they couldn't deny the result. Some muttered quietly, blaming only themselves. In the end, they bowed. Regretfully, they offered a formal apology to the Duke of Ramslet, their pride wounded but words spoken aloud. With her voice trembling, the girl offered a direct apology. Before the silent audience, she bowed, finally acknowledging her mistake. Anastasia accepted the words but issued a stern warning. She made it clear belittling the Ramslet family would no longer go unchallenged. As they returned to their seats, tension lingered. Whispers followed Carl and his group, their expressions stiff, as they walked past watching eyes. Some questioned the apology's sincerity. Alan observed quietly, noting the discomfort etched into their faces. Just as he prepared to leave, Anastasia stopped him with a smile. Something else still remained. Alan stood on stage, confused by Anastasia's sudden call. Murmurs spread through the crowd as she addressed him formally, with a strong voice. Anastasia proclaimed Alan had upheld the honor of House Ramslet. His role in defending her reputation had not gone unnoticed. As recognition for his loyalty and courage, the Duke of Ramslet would extend his family's protection to Alan and his kin. Whispers rippled through the audience. The announcement shocked many. How could a commoner receive such privilege? At last, Anastasia presented the family crest. Alan was asked would he accept the honor. Alan accepted the handkerchief with a mix of confusion and sincerity, unsure if it held deeper noble significance. He pledged himself to the gesture. Applause erupted from the audience. Margaret and Isabella clapped enthusiastically, their approval surprising yet comforting to Alan. Together he and Anastasia exited the hall. The echo of clapping followed them through the grand corridors of the academy. Curious, Alan asked why she made such a public declaration, especially when the king was already aware of the arrangement. Anastasia explained her reasoning. It was a warning. Any harm toward Alan would now be treated as a threat to the Ramslet family itself. Still holding the handkerchief, turned to Anastasia with uncertainty. He quietly asked what the gesture truly meant. Before she could reply, classmates gathered around, praising Anastasia's actions. Alan, meanwhile, was pulled into conversation by curious voices. Isabella and Margaret approached with bright smiles. They teased Alan, asking to see the handkerchief he received. The two girls leaned closer with excitement. Alan, puzzled by their reactions, asked what was so significant about it. With a knowing smile, Margaret explained. When a noble lady gives a handkerchief sewn with her crest, it's meant for the knight she trusts most. The girls explained that receiving a noblewoman's embroidered handkerchief meant a public declaration of belonging. Alan was left speechless, flustered. Alan tried to downplay the situation. Meanwhile, the girls teased him, making the meaning even clearer. Alan remembered the Duke's words. Anna, as a Duke's daughter, would one day face a political marriage. Despite everything, Anna smiled and reassured him. They promised to protect one another, no matter what came next. Rumors swirled in the Westerdale kingdom after Prince Claude was expelled, a move viewed as punishment for a disgraceful duel. Some speculated that love drove Claude's actions, as he willingly took responsibility for Amy and stepped away. Yet deeper motives surfaced: fear that Amy would abandon their kingdom, triggering unrest and collapse. With Estonian forces poised to exploit the tension, the question arose: would Westerdale ally with them, or stay loyal? Coldly, one voice suggested dividing the nation with Estonia might be preferable to preserving a fragile sovereignty. Doubt crept in as suspicion arose that Prince Claude might already be coordinating with Estonia behind the scenes. Alan considered the scenario from the original game: Estonia invades, Amy escapes, and Westerdale leads a counterattack. However, that timeline seemed unlikely now. Alan had altered events, and Amy's sainthood had been used to manipulate the kingdom's support. News then arrived from the south. Conrad, the eldest son, had returned home in haste. The Ramslet territory, bordering South Estonia's ally, was mobilizing, raising fears that Zuth was aligning itself for war. Surrounded by alliances on all sides, the threat of northern aggression added another layer of danger to their position. Despite the tension, military response was constrained by timing. Nothing could be done until after the harvest season. In the midst of strategy and uncertainty, Alan humbly offered his support to Amy, reaffirming his loyalty as a commoner. Time passed quietly at the academy. The second year unfolded without disruption after the expulsion of the former Villainess. Though the social order shifted, Amy's surroundings remained calm. Only Prince Claude's absence marked a notable change. Around the academy, the second prince's faction began deliberately distancing itself from the crown prince's allies. Political tension from the royal palace seeped into student life, raising concerns and whispers of deeper schemes. Anastasia approached Alan, inviting him for a walk under the pretense of casual conversation. She revealed her research interest and exploration of adventurers and their impact within the kingdom's structure. When she asked for an introduction to the guild, Alan hesitated, unsettled by the sudden attention from its intimidating members. Anastasia teased Alan playfully, pretending to be offended by his hesitation, only to brush it off with a smile. As the summer research began, she mentioned that Isabella and Margaret would work together on literature, drawing knowing smiles from nearby classmates. Alan noticed Anna had begun smiling more frequently, likely a result of her growing bond with the girls. Later she appeared, dressed in simple village attire, uncertain about the necessity of her disguise. On the street, Alan explained the outfit was arranged by Sebastian, prompting Anna to remark on her unusual act of sneaking out. Anna's circumstances shifted noticeably following her dual and broken engagement with the crown prince. Though reluctant to hide, she accepted the need to remain discreet, while her family stayed neutral in the royal conflict. During their walk through town, Alan and Anna encountered a suspicious figure, prompting Alan's alert response. A group of elite students appeared, boldly claiming they would eliminate monsters, and requested directions to the village. However, the cloaked girl's quiet confession revealed an uncomfortable truth. There were no monsters, exposing a misunderstanding or something deeper. Tension erupted as the cloaked girl shouted her innocence, but Marx furiously accused her of lying to the future king. Meanwhile, Alan and Anna wandered the streets until a sudden gasp revealed someone had recognized them. An unfamiliar girl confronted Anna, convinced she was interfering with her divine blessing once again. Alan, confused by the accusation, tried to understand what blessing meant, only to witness the cloaked girl prepare for a desperate move. Without warning, she lunged at Alan, knocking him down while Anna watched in stunned disbelief. Alan recognized the girl's voice and was stunned to realize it was Cheryl Laura. Someone he hadn't expected to see here. She confirmed her identity without hesitation, quickly turning the situation in her favor. Cheryl accused the other students of threatening her, claiming they intended to steal her money, stating they were only following a prophecy received by Amy and were acting accordingly. The prophecy demanded the elf village be saved from a monster attack, and Cheryl's presence had misled them into thinking she was part of it. Frustrated, Cheryl firmly denied being attacked by any monster, demanding they stop bothering her. Anastasia stepped forward with authority, condemning the group for attempting robbery within city limits. Carl, realizing the situation was turning against them, ordered a retreat. Though visibly irritated, he left with a bitter remark and a threat not to forget the incident. Even as they departed, the strange wind conjured during the confrontation remained. Tension flared anew when Cheryl demanded to know who the unfamiliar girl was. Anna, equally annoyed, returned the question with suspicion. Their banter escalated. Cheryl mocked Anna as a little girl, prompting a fierce rebuttal. Anna bristled at being belittled by someone even shorter. As the group walked, tension flared once more. Cheryl demanded Alan's support in the ongoing spat, while Anna issued a royal challenge, questioning her opponent's identity. Soon after, Alan withdrew to the guild, seeking a moment of peace. He crouched in a quiet corridor while others checked on him. A guild member explained Alan's retreat, amused by his entanglement in what he called a lover's quarrel between two fiery women. When Alan remained silent, the teasing escalated. Another member accused him of eavesdropping, forcing Alan to respond to their playful accusations. Inside the room, Alan tried to regain calm. He invited Cheryl to remove her hood, hoping to shift the atmosphere. Cheryl finally removed her hood, revealing her elven ears. Alan introduced her as the daughter of the Queen of Elves, stunning Anna, who hadn't realized she was royalty. Anna, caught off guard by the revelation, quickly apologized for her earlier behavior. To smooth over the tension, Alan explained that in the elven village rank held no weight, and nobles and commoners were treated equally, something Anna found unusual. Brightly, Cheryl shifted the mood by inviting Alan to a summer festival held in her village, clearly excited to extend the invitation. Though her sudden appearance and effort startled everyone, She explained that the festival was rare, occurring only once every 10 years, and she believed Alan. Cheryl excitedly agreed to accompany Alan, eager to ride the flying ship after the festival. Anna quietly observed the exchange. Anna, suppressing irritation, demanded an explanation. Alan hesitated, realizing he could no longer hide the truth. Meanwhile, a staff member discovered an unconscious man in the hall, apparently punished for eavesdropping. Anastasia's voice cut through the room as she demanded to know Alan's connection to the elf. Without hesitation, the elf revealed Alan's role in their village. To her, he wasn't just a stranger, he was someone who had once saved them. She explained how Alan had defended their people from malevolent spirits. Tension rose as playful accusations filled the air. Anastasia questioned the elf's influence, while Alan, clearly overwhelmed, tried to deflect the teasing with visible frustration. With a confident smile, the elf shifted the mood. She leaned forward, inviting them to attend the village's upcoming summer festival, ending the discussion on a lighter note. Alan questioned how Cheryl managed to enter the town unnoticed. Though willing to attend the festival, he seemed uneasy about her presence. With a casual gesture, Cheryl claimed she simply walked through the gate, treating the situation as if it were nothing unusual. Concerned, Alan warned her of the risk. Exposure could lead to the elven village's secret being revealed, a danger neither of them could ignore. Cheryl, confused by the urgency, asked if humans truly posed that kind of threat. Alan clarified the real danger wasn't just hostility, but discovery. Although she brushed it off with a smile, Alan remained serious. Her luck wouldn't last forever, and one mistake could compromise everything. Before departing, Alan hesitated and asked whether Anastasia could accompany them. She remained quiet, processing the request. He proposed using the Noble's Gate, reasoning that her presence would prevent suspicion. The plan hinged on her consent. To Alan, it was the safest route out of town. However, the idea of a human entering the elven village sparked immediate resistance. Cheryl, thoughtful yet amused, suggested an alternative. They could pretend Anastasia was Alan's fiancée. Flustered but compliant, Anastasia agreed. If that was the condition, she would play the role, however awkward it felt. Alan apologized, worried the plan might trouble Anastasia. But she stood firm, seeing it as a valuable chance to understand elven life firsthand. Without delay, she excused herself to prepare, asking logistical questions along the way. Her sudden enthusiasm left Alan slightly bewildered. An hour later, the group gathered beside a sleek aircraft. Cheryl beamed with pride as she introduced it as Alan's flying ship. Astonished, Anastasia questioned if it truly soared. The elf assured her that it would, empowered by the divine wind's blessing. With goggles in hand, Cheryl awaited guidance. Alan hesitated, caught off guard by her readiness. Perched alone on the rear of the aircraft, Cheryl shouted, confused why no one else had joined her. Alan calmly explained that others would sit up front. He assured her the seat was special, chosen for its scenic view, but asked her to keep it secret to avoid upsetting Anastasia. Rather than complain, Cheryl grinned, praising Alan's cleverness. The others remained unsure of what he had whispered. To balance the weight, Anastasia was instructed to ride behind Alan. She climbed aboard and wrapped her arms around him. Though awkward, she insisted it was fine, brushing off the close contact and weight as necessary. The aircraft lifted off with a powerful surge, soaring into the sky as the group braced for flight. Astonishment filled their faces as clouds rushed past. Cheryl marveled at the speed and altitude, calling out in excitement. From above, the royal capital appeared distant and miniature. Anastasia clung tighter, surprised by the scale of the view below. Alan explained the journey would take 4 hours, promising they'd reach the elven village by sunset, despite the cramped conditions. Though pressed together, Anastasia glanced at him with admiration, quietly acknowledging Alan's brilliance and determination. As the aircraft descended, the elves below recognized Alan and confirmed Cheryl's safety, but confusion stirred when they noticed a third figure aboard. Surprise rippled through the group. A human was with them. Whispers quickly spread among the onlookers. Stepping out of the aircraft, Anastasia received hesitant praise. For the elves, seeing another human besides Alan was unsettling. Curiosity grew. While villagers marveled at the sky journey, Anastasia stood tall, absorbing the reality of the elven village. Later that evening, they were greeted by the Queen of Elves herself, who politely asked about the unfamiliar girl by Alan's side. With calm conviction, Alan introduced Anastasia as someone dear to him. His words caused her eyes to widen in surprise. The Queen reacted with subtle amusement, softly repeating the word precious as she observed them both. Though initially uncertain, the Queen accepted Alan's explanation. The atmosphere lightened slightly, though curiosity lingered. Anastasia formally introduced herself, presenting her noble status with grace. Her background seemed to ease some tension, but the Queen's tone shifted. She questioned whether Anastasia understood the reasons behind the elven village's isolation from humans, hinting at deeper truths ahead. The queen questioned Anastasia's intentions. Despite knowing the village's isolation, had she still chosen to accompany Alan? Alan attempted to explain their circumstances, stepping in before Anastasia could respond, but tension lingered in the air. She gently requested to speak with Anastasia alone. Alan and the others were asked to step outside. Under the moonlight, Alan reflected silently. Doubts crept in what was being said behind closed doors, and had he made the right decision. But as memories of their flight returned, he reassured himself. No, bringing Anastasia here was something he believed in. Under the moonlight, Alan stood quietly, lost in thought. His mind returned to Anastasia and what she meant to him now. Originally, his mission was to help others, but somehow, she had become central to his thoughts. That shift startled him more than he expected. His contemplation was interrupted by the appearance of Lo Chan, the energetic spirit of light, who immediately scolded him once again. The misunderstanding escalated as a young girl arrived. Another elf questioned Alan's behavior, adding to the commotion. Meanwhile, Lo gleamed with curiosity, eager to meet the rumored wife Alan had supposedly brought along. Alan quickly clarified that Anastasia wasn't a child, nor just a comrade. Lo teased him anyway, insisting she understood him well. Millie ran up, asking for a hug. Alan, flustered, complied, while Lo loudly declared him a valued companion, though not without mockery. Meanwhile, inside, the queen continued her quiet conversation with Anastasia. She asked if she understood the reason elves hid from humans. Anastasia responded solemnly. She acknowledged the cruelty of humans capturing elves for their beauty, treating them as possessions. The queen warned her exposure would bring danger. Alan could be targeted just for knowing them. The queen calmly warned Anastasia that her choice to come placed not only Alan, but her own family in danger. Despite knowing the risks, Anastasia had come. Her heart hesitated as memories of Alan stirred emotions she couldn't ignore. Overwhelmed, she struggled to voice the truth. Her feelings, though real, felt like a forbidden burden. Kneeling before the village elder, Anastasia hesitated before speaking. A single name escaped her lips: Alan, the one person who continued to trouble her heart. The elder closed her eyes, pointing out the reality Anastasia knew too well. Rather than denying the bond, the elder gently proposed another path. A peaceful life alongside Alan in the village could offer a future untouched by status. Support from the villagers was clear. They cherished Alan and wished him joy, even if it meant abandoning everything tied to the human realm. As the daughter of a noble house built on the sacrifices of others, she could not choose love over duty. Faced with the impossible choice, Anastasia struggled to imagine a path that included both love and duty. The elder challenged her, suggesting such a path might still exist. Rather than choosing one over the other, the elder proposed something bold: serving the people with Alan. A thought surfaced: if that future were possible, wouldn't it be ideal? Doubt crept in, not about herself, but about what Alan truly desired. The elder, watching closely, sensed the weight Anastasia carried. To her, the young noblewoman seemed overly burdened by self-sacrifice. With gentle eyes, she urged Anastasia to breathe, to listen inwardly, and stop running from her own feelings. As she stepped out into the corridor, Anastasia softly called Alan's name. He turned to her, surprised, but attentive, his voice calm and welcoming. Suddenly, a group of cheerful children greeted her under the moonlight. One boy beamed with joy, asking if her talk with the queen had ended. Flustered by the encounter, Anastasia tried to compose herself. She insisted nothing was wrong, though her reddened face said otherwise. The boy introduced a young girl as Miral Lore, daughter of the queen, and mentioned a spirit named Lo. Anastasia couldn't see it. Perplexed, she accepted the explanation. Meanwhile, the tiny spirit hovered nearby, unimpressed by the clumsy introduction. Anastasia formally introduced herself to the spirit of light, speaking with grace and composure. The spirit responded with curiosity, its expression shifting with interest. Without warning, a swarm of tiny spirits gathered around Anastasia, circling her intently. Something about her presence had caught their attention, and eerie tension filled the air. Suspicion arose when the queen's daughter questioned Alan about Anastasia's identity. Her noble lineage was unmistakable. Revealing her connection, the child calmly explained she had once taught magic to Anastasia's mother, back when she was just a girl. Meanwhile, Alan grew uneasy as he realized Anastasia couldn't hear the spirit's voice. Miral Lore extended her arms, silently requesting a hug. Confused, Anastasia hesitated until someone gently explained the child's intention. With some awkwardness, she followed Alan's instructions and returned the embrace. The moment, though unfamiliar, warmed her guarded heart. As they stood together, others watched from the side. the child's attachment softened suspicions, and even those once skeptical began to see Anastasia differently. Amazed whispers broke out about status and love. The idea of a noble and a commoner together stirred talk of forbidden romance. But someone reminded them this was an elven village, hidden from the human world. Here, no one would judge what blossomed. The mischievous spirit teased Alan once again, amused by his reactions and hinting at his growing attachment to Anastasia. Lying in bed, Alan recalled the words spoken earlier: this village was safe, hidden from outside judgment. Still, the implications lingered in his thoughts. Elsewhere, Anastasia sat alone beneath the moonlight, reflecting on her role and emotions. For the first time, she allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. The next day, the village buzzed with excitement as the festival began. Curious elves welcomed newcomers and shared their traditions. Anastasia, now dressed for the occasion, stood beside Alan. Compliments and teasing flowed as the villagers commented on her beauty and their closeness. Alan listened as the villagers explained the unique tradition of the festival. The man protects the woman as they run together, watched over by spirits. He learned that successfully defending the symbolic tiara during the event brought blessings. The meaning felt ambiguous, yet somehow significant. Anastasia appeared, now dressed in ceremonial robes. Though confused by the details, she sensed the activity involved partnership, something not easily dismissed. Neither fully understanding the rules, they agreed to join. After all, they were already part of the village's rhythm together. They followed the others deeper into the heart of the celebration, curious and uncertain. Yet walking side by side, romance bloomed around the festival grounds as couples shared gentle moments. Alan and Anastasia, standing stiffly among them, could only watch in silence. Feeling the pressure of the crowd, they nervously agreed to skip the affectionate traditions. Their awkwardness was mutual and obvious. As music filled the air, the two were drawn into the center of the gathering. A host invited everyone to join the circle without hesitation, uncertain. They observed the dancing but chose to follow along. Alan couldn't offer answers, only a shrug and patience. Instructions finally arrived: don't let the tiara get dirty and just run. The real game was about to begin. With the beat of drums rising, the elf villagers rallied, shouting in excitement. The challenge was about to begin in full force. Alan and Anastasia looked around nervously as the villagers advanced, baskets in hand and expressions oddly serious. Just as confusion peaked, acceleration magic launched the participants forward. One elf smiled and simply wished them luck. Alan grabbed Anastasia's hand and ran. The goal was now clear: protect the tiara, avoid getting hit, and survive the onslaught of flying fruit. A second later, Alan took a direct hit to the face. The trial had officially begun. Despite the stinging fruit assault, Alan urged Anastasia to protect the tiara. He reassured her with a bleeding smile. It didn't hurt much. A sudden burst of water magic slammed into them. Alan shielded Anastasia, bewildered by the magical escalation. One villager grinned and shouted the rule: anything goes, as long as it's harmless. Chaos was fair play. With Anastasia injured, Alan pulled her close and unleashed a smokescreen, buying them precious seconds. Lifting her in his arms, Alan made the call. There was no time to hesitate, they had to keep running. Alan finally stopped under cover, setting Anastasia down gently, flustered. He apologized while she asked to be released, soaked, but still holding the tiara. Anastasia was relieved it remained intact. Quietly, she wondered if she had been too heavy. Alan quickly dismissed the concern, claiming he could carry her for hours. The comment echoed around them, drawing teasing laughter from nearby villagers. Even the tiny spirits were moved, reenacting dramatic declarations of love and support, their playful exaggerations echoing through the air. But the break ended quickly. Guided by a villager, Anastasia took Alan's hand and pulled him back into the race. Alan used wind magic to shield them from incoming fruit. Surrounded and overwhelmed, he carried Anastasia and searched for cover. Their pursuers closed in with renewed force. Despite exhaustion, Alan held firm, refusing to surrender as tension escalated. Surrounded by enemies, Alan stood firm with Anna at his side. He kept her close, bracing for the confrontation ahead as the attackers closed in with confidence. Without hesitation, he pinned Anna against a nearby tree, using his body to block any incoming threat. The enemies hurled their weapons with cruel smiles. Anna could only watch in fear as Alan shielded her from the assault. Fighting to stay upright, Alan began chanting. He focused his mana, determined to hold out until time expired. A surge of energy burst forth, his spell launched. The ice spear struck one enemy directly, halting their advance. Anna's voice trembled as she confronted Alan, questioning the meaning of his sacrifice. Her concern was not for the outcome, but for his safety. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the tension. Alan turned, startled by the interruption. A woman stepped forward, announcing the end of the trial as a ceremonial bell rang in the distance. The ordeal was officially over. Anna collapsed into Alan, overwhelmed by relief. Meanwhile, one of the elves apologized for acting on impulse, facing her mother's judgment. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. Praise followed from the officials, and Alan could only respond with quiet gratitude. A festive atmosphere surrounded Alan and Anna as the crowd gathered for the next part of the ceremony. Decorative poles swayed in the breeze while quiet murmurs filled the square. Officials announced that those who protected the tiara must return 10 years later for another task. Alan and Anna were called forward, still unsure of what awaited them. Confused by the instructions, they hesitated. Whispers and glances confirmed something unusual was about to happen again. Cheering erupted as the crowd urged them to perform a ritual. Embarrassment washed over them. Meeting eyes, they reluctantly agreed to go along. Surrounded by onlookers, they stood side by side. As they stood inches apart, Anna hesitated, reminding Alan he wasn't obligated. Still, he nodded, insisting they continue, even if just for show. Their lips met briefly before pulling apart, the gesture leaving both wide-eyed. The surrounding crowd faded into the background. Alan looked away, cheeks flushed, unsure how to process what just happened. Anna remained silent, her expression mixed with confusion and realization. Suddenly, a mysterious girl appeared, identifying herself as the daughter of Elizabeth and Gerhard. Both Alan and Anna were stunned. She introduced herself as Loringas, the spirit of light, and a descendant of a legendary sage. Her presence shifted the mood entirely. The spirit of light turned to Anna, acknowledging her unwavering resolve. She offered her divine blessing without hesitation, promising protection from both herself and the spirit Loringas. She entrusted Anna with Alan's future. Grateful, Anna accepted the duty with a quiet nod. As word spread, the crowd erupted in surprise and praise. Receiving such a blessing, especially for a human, was unheard of. Later, Alan found solace in the quiet of a hot spring. The festival was far from over, but he needed a break. Reflecting in the steam, Alan realized the entire event was a ceremony for choosing partners. He wondered how Anna would feel if she'd known. Anna unexpectedly entered the hot spring, wrapped in a towel. Alan turned in shock, calling her name in disbelief. Realizing the situation, he panicked, questioning if the bath was mixed. Embarrassed, he tried to excuse himself. Anna stopped him, though flustered. She insisted it was fine as long as he didn't look her way. Separated by a rock, the two quietly shared the space. Alan muttered that the elves really hadn't explained things properly. Looking at the peaceful night sky, Anna expressed her fondness for the village. Alan agreed, smiling at the warmth they both felt. At the celebration, elves shared their values: no nobles, no taxes, just equality. Everyone lived peacefully, without greed or hierarchy. Anna listened in silence, overwhelmed by the fairness of the elven society. Questions swirled in her mind about humanity's failure to achieve the same. As Alan called her formally, Anna corrected him. Her voice was gentle but firm. Just Anna was enough. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she questioned whether rank mattered in this village. Here, titles held no weight. She confessed her wish to simply be Anastasia, not a duke's daughter. Alan paused, then softly replied, "Anna." She smiled, finally seen for who she was. With flushed cheeks, Anna asked Alan to drop titles and just be himself. Her voice was firm yet vulnerable, hoping for honesty between equals. Moved by her words, Alan embraced her, under the moonlight. The two shared a quiet kiss, wrapped in each other's warmth. Elsewhere, the spirit of light watched silently. Her gentle smile acknowledged the bond that had just deepened between the two. Later that night, Alan lay awake while Anna slept beside him. Thoughts lingered on everything that had changed. As they talked in the dark, memories resurfaced of a fleeting meeting in childhood. Both finally realized they had crossed paths long ago. They held each other in silence, wrapped in the warmth of shared emotions. Alan awoke slowly, the calm of the morning sun filtering through the paper window. His thoughts lingered on the night before. Anna stirred beside him, teasing him gently for waking up late. They exchanged soft greetings, unsure of what to say next. As she stood up, Anna deflected the tension with blame, telling him it was his fault. Alan could only stammer in response. Sitting down, Anna reminded him once more. No more titles, just Anna. Alan nodded, understanding her completely now. Before leaving the village, Alan stopped Anna. He had one more place he wanted her to see. They arrived at a quiet lake on the outskirts. Hand in hand, the calm water reflected the peace they both felt. Anna smiled and pointed to the many spirits dancing above the surface. Alan called her name, hesitating, trying to apologize for the night before. He stumbled over his words. Anna stopped him firmly, unwilling to let awkwardness ruin what they had. Looking out over the lake, Alan made a promise. Someday, he would earn the Duke's recognition no matter how long it took. With conviction in his voice, Alan promised to achieve something worthy so he could stand before Anna proudly. No matter what, he vowed to protect her. Though unsure of the timing, he pulled out a ring, admitting it was out of order. He asked her to marry him. Anna's eyes welled up with emotion, and with a radiant smile, she said yes. Surrounded by glowing spirits, the two embraced. A new chapter quietly began. Later that day, they prepared to depart. Anna wore a fairy's ornament, a token of truth. Their hearts were ready for what lay ahead. Alan and Anna flew toward the royal capital, knowing it would be the last time they could forget their roles. Though reluctant, they accepted it was time to return. Upon arrival, Alan was summoned. A stern man confronted him, asking if he understood why he had been called. The atmosphere shifted. Calm was replaced by tension. Alan unleashes a concentrated magic strike toward the descending beasts. Energy bursts forward and tears through their wings. Anna stands firm as fragments scatter. After the clash, silence fills the cavern. The fallen monsters lie motionless nearby. Alan remains steady while Anna lowers her guard. Exhaustion does not show on her face despite the fight. Preparation for the coming boss battle weighs on them. Anna drinks water to recover strength. Alan watches quietly, assessing their condition before moving deeper. 4 days earlier, Alan sat across from a nobleman inside a formal room. Attention shifted toward a ring resting on Anna's finger. Suspicion hardened the man's expression as he questioned why she possessed that ring. Alan calmly stated that he had given the ring to Anastasia. The nobleman's expression twisted with anger. Accusations followed immediately, warning him to stay away from any daughter of his house. Fury filled the room as the man rose from his seat. He condemned the idea of a noble lady wearing a ring from a commoner. Honor and reputation were invoked to justify his outrage. Alan remained composed and revealed the truth. That ring was no ordinary ornament, but something far more significant. Explanation unfolded about a substitution ring capable of saving its wearer from death once. Such a legendary artifact was treasured among royals and feared by enemies. Understanding dawned as Anastasia examined the ring on her finger. Removing it would defeat its purpose, so she chose to keep it. The Duke questioned Alan about obtaining proof from the dangerous mountain dungeon. Doubt lingered, as no official report confirmed such a feat. Nevertheless, Alan insisted he had entered alone and returned with evidence. Rare materials from a defeated blizzard phoenix were presented before him. Magic stones and feathers served as undeniable proof of the expedition. Calmly, Alan declared his intention to earn military achievements and secure a noble title. Ambition guided his resolve as he outlined a future built on merit. Firm determination followed, as he stated his desire to stand beside Anastasia and protect her for life. The Duke responded with a strict limit of 3 years, warning him harshly. The Duke promised a brutal battlefield assignment. Acceptance came without hesitation from Alan. A blizzard phoenix burst apart, under a precise attack, its massive body collapsing amid shattered ice and scattered feathers. The creature's final struggle ended instantly in the frozen cavern. Holding a rifle firmly, Alan evaluated the result with calm satisfaction. Lacking talent with the sword, he relied on magic and strategy instead. Confidence replaced any trace of hesitation. Beside him, Anastasia declared her intention to protect him when blades were required. Tireless training had shaped her strength, allowing their partnership to balance offense and defense. Beyond personal growth, Alan entered the dungeon to help Anastasia grow stronger. Stability of the duchy depended on her future power, especially in dangerous times. Preparations concluded as they approached the boss chamber. Determination sharpened when Alan chose to face the enemy first. Witnessing his resolve became another reason for Anastasia to stand there. Inside the cavern, Alan and Anastasia advanced toward the towering blizzard phoenix. Cold air surged from the creature as it rose before a pillar of light. Shields were raised while they prepared for the subjugation. Suddenly, the phoenix spread its massive wings and unleashed a violent gust. Anastasia braced behind her shield as frost swept across the ground. Alan positioned himself carefully, waiting for an opening. In one swift motion, Anastasia created space while Alan aimed his rifle with steady focus. A precise shot pierced through the monster's body. Impact shattered its defenses instantly. Explosive force tore through the phoenix, sending fragments and feathers scattering across the cavern. The massive creature crashed to the ground, its wings collapsing lifelessly. Silence returned as Alan confirmed the result. Anastasia lowered her guard, surprised by the speed of victory. The battle had ended decisively. Across the cavern floor, The blizzard phoenix's enormous body lay motionless. Carefully, Alan and Anastasia examined its vast wings before beginning to gather tail feathers, wing feathers, and the embedded magic stone. Kneeling beside the remains, Alan removed a large magic stone and offered it to Anastasia. Surprise crossed her face at its size. Together they acknowledged that the victory was shared. Insistence from Alan made it clear she should claim the reward. Recognition as the labyrinth's conqueror would elevate her status and influence. Beyond immediate benefits, this success would strengthen her family's reputation. Historical records of the unexplored labyrinth made the achievement even more meaningful within the duchy afterward. Both settled near a treasure chest in the dungeon's depths. Curiosity gradually replaced fatigue as attention turned toward whatever treasure remained inside. While examining the treasure chest, Alan lifted a massive black sword from within. Anastasia watched closely as the heavy blade emerged, its design unlike any ordinary weapon stored in the dungeon. Resting the sword across his knees, Alan recognized it as the dungeon's true treasure. Alongside it, a small magic bag appeared, adding further value to their discovery. Careful inspection revealed the weapon's identity as the legendary Sky Knight's sword. Realization struck Anastasia as she understood the national importance of such an artifact. Without hesitation, Alan decided the blade should belong to her. Surprise and disbelief crossed her face as she processed the weight of his decision. Despite its status as a national treasure, Alan treated it as a personal gift. The gesture carried quiet meaning beyond the dungeon's victory. With a gentle smile, Alan explained that the legendary sword would serve as a birthday gift for the one who had accepted his proposal. Gratitude softened her voice while Alan promised to present it again on her next birthday. The heavy blade remained between them, symbolizing both victory and personal commitment. Later, inside the dungeon core, tension quietly replaced celebration. Having defeated the boss, they confirmed no monsters remained nearby. Silence settled heavily in the chamber. After receiving reassurance, Anastasia stepped closer. Realization that they were alone changed the atmosphere. Unexpectedly, she leaned forward, closing the distance between them. Startled by her sudden movement, Alan froze in place. Serious resolve appeared in her eyes as she confirmed that no one else was there. Light laughter eased the tension as Alan suggested exploring the dungeon a little longer before returning. Anastasia agreed, and together they moved through the remaining passages without urgency. Multiple laps around the Wind Mountain dungeon followed, completing Anastasia's final level progression. Afterward they returned to the estate and formally reported the results while presenting the spoils collected from the battle. Within the audience chamber, the Duke accepted the report and promised to register the quest officially. Private thoughts lingered as Alan reflected that their closeness remained undiscovered. With only 2 days of summer break remaining, new travel plans were set in motion. Soon, preparations led them toward the Valley of the Flying Dragons. There Alan intended to introduce Anastasia to trusted allies and confirm their safety. While flying toward the Valley of the Flying Dragons, Alan noticed a subtle change in Anastasia's tone. The aircraft cut through thick clouds as tension quietly formed between them. Observation led Alan to remark that her manner of speaking differed from other noble ladies. Anastasia listened carefully, uncertain whether her behavior seemed improper. Close proximity inside the cockpit heightened awareness of each other's presence. Questioning whether men preferred gentler speech, she studied his reaction behind her goggles. A sudden shift in the aircraft interrupted the moment, causing brief panic. Apologies followed quickly as both regained control and steadied their course through the sky. Calm returned when Alan clarified his feelings. Preference did not matter to him, as he simply wished for a relaxed and genuine relationship with Anastasia. While flying steadily, Anastasia reflected on her past as a palace apprentice and how she eventually trained to become a knight beside the prince. Memories of commanding others lingered, revealing habits formed during those years. Gradually, she recognized how authority influenced her tone and behavior. Before the moment could settle, a wyvern suddenly appeared ahead of their aircraft. Immediate danger forced both of them to focus on the approaching threat. A wyvern charges through the sky toward the small aircraft. Alan moves across the wing, positioning himself between the beast and his companion. Shock spreads across the cockpit as the creature closes in. Realization strikes that the wyvern has noticed Alan's presence and targets him directly. Drawing closer, Alan signals for calm while studying the beast's movements. Recognition flickers in its eyes, yet its aggression does not fade. Suddenly, the wyvern lunges with open jaws. Urgency forces Alan to abandon hesitation as the aircraft veers away from its attack path. Another dragon appears and collides with the attacker midair. The clash erupts above the fleeing aircraft, leaving Alan stunned as the battle shifts away from them. A massive sky dragon descends above the aircraft, its wings casting a shadow over Alan and his companion. Instead of attacking, it positions itself protectively, driving away the hostile wyvern and ensuring their safety. On the ground near ancient ruins, the dragon lowers itself before Alan. Recognition settles between them, revealing that this powerful creature is Jerome, someone Alan once knew. Jerome leans closer to Anna, studying her with open curiosity. Tension fills the air as she stiffens under the dragon's gaze, uncertain about his intentions. Melissa steps forward, attempting to ease the awkward moment. Alan quickly clarifies the situation, preventing further misunderstanding between his friends. Later, they gather within the ruins to speak calmly. Jerome listens as Alan asks about recent events, concerned about possible human attacks since their last meeting. Jerome explains that wyverns in the valley were attacked by a strange pink-haired woman and her armed companions. The creatures were defeated quickly, but the incident raised concern. Alan listens carefully, while Jerome observes Anna from behind. He states that although no help is needed now, he wants his strength offered if Anna ever faces danger. Curiosity shifts toward Anna as Jerome questions her place beside Alan. Alan remains calm, admitting her parents have not approved of their bond, yet he intends to earn recognition. Jerome's tone sharpens at that revelation. Anna senses unease while Alan asks what troubles him. With cold logic, Jerome suggests eliminating those who refuse acknowledgement, leaving Alan startled by the extreme proposal. Jerome argues that anyone who refuses to acknowledge Alan should be eliminated, but Anna suddenly strikes him to stop the reckless idea. The dragon immediately falters and offers a sincere apology. With a steady voice, Alan challenges Jerome's harsh reasoning and questions what caused such extreme thoughts. Unease lingers as he attempts to guide his old friend back to restraint. Trying to calm herself, Anna assumes the remark was nothing more than poor humor. Beside her, Alan reassures her softly, determined to prevent further discomfort. Lowering his head, Jerome moves closer and carefully memorizes Anna's scent. He explains that remembering it will allow him to find and protect her if danger ever arises. Soon after, both dragons crowd around Anna out of curiosity, leaving her flustered. Once satisfied, Jerome steps back and vows to guard the person Alan values most. With a thoughtful gesture, Alan takes items from his bag to repay Jerome's help. Despite Anna saying it was unnecessary, the dragon admits he would gladly accept some meat. Reaching into the enchanted storage, Alan brings out fresh orc meat from Altland. After tasting it, Anna acknowledges its quality while quietly noting the bag's impressive capacity. Soon afterward, Melissa eagerly asks for a share of the food. Smiling easily, Alan responds in a relaxed manner, and Anna observes their exchange with softened expression. Once Jerome finishes eating, preparations to leave the valley begin. Near the ancient ruins, the dragons remain behind as the aircraft rises steadily into the air. In time, the academy stands before them once more. As summer concludes, their arrival signals the end of vacation and the start of another school term. During class, Alan and Anna present their summer research on adventurers in the country standing before their classmates. They argue for rebuilding trust between both sides. Their report explains that nobles seek profits from labyrinths without risking their own knights. Responsibility is avoided, while revenue becomes the central source of conflict. Alan carefully notes that adventurers risk their lives for those earnings. He implies the country schemes to claim a share under acceptable justification. Classmates discuss examples from Altland, where knights and adventurers cooperate. Joint hunts provide stability and steady food supplies for the region. As debate continues, attention turns to the Adventurers Guild's viewpoint. Anna prepares to explain their side to complete the balanced argument. During a break, Margaret and Isabella notice the ring on Anna's finger and the ornament in her hair. Curious glances turn into teasing questions about whether Alan gave them to her. Flustered, Anna avoids giving a direct answer. Since returning from the elven village, she has continued wearing both items without explaining their origin. Rumors quietly spread through the academy, especially about the fairy hair ornament, though occasionally embarrassed. Anna refuses to reveal who entrusted it to her. As she and Alan leave the classroom, a stern voice stops them in the corridor. A group of students confronts Anna, claiming the hair ornament belongs to them and demanding its return. Facing them without hesitation, Anna firmly declares that the ornament was given to her by a noble and is not their property. Amy loudly insists the hair ornament was meant for her and demands it back. Calmly, yet firmly, Anna refuses, stating she will not surrender it, regardless of who claims it. The prince steps in and sides with Amy, declaring the ornament rightfully hers. Doubt flickers across Alan's face as he realizes the prince unquestioningly trusts her words. Tension rises when another student backs Amy's claim and dismisses objections, standing straight. Alan addresses the prince respectfully and repeats that the accessory belongs to Anastasia. Without warning, an angry student lunges toward Anna and reaches for her hair. Shock spreads through the corridor as classmates shout her name. Before he can grab it, the ornament releases a sudden force that hurls him backward. Silence falls as he crashes to the floor, leaving everyone stunned by the artifact's power. The fallen student lies shaken on the floor while others stare at Anna in confusion. Though slightly dizzy, she assures them she is unharmed as whispers spread through the corridor. A heavy presence fills the air around Anna, and unseen voices echo with judgment. The spirits recognize her as their chosen child and warn that anyone attempting to steal that proof will be punished. Dark pressure gathers behind her, forming a looming silhouette that silences the hallway. Fear grips the students as the spirits question who dared harm the one they cherish. Panic erupts, and several students flee in terror. Alan remains beside Anna, watching carefully as the oppressive aura slowly fades. In the aftermath, anger turns toward Amy for provoking the incident. Determination hardens within her as she insists her destined role must not be obstructed. Alan steps forward and declares that the hair ornament belongs to Anastasia. Firmly, he rejects Amy's claim and refuses to let her rewrite the truth. Turning toward her, Alan urges Amy to face reality instead of clinging to illusion. He reminds her that everyone standing there is a living person, not pieces arranged for her sake. Calm but resolute, he states that countless lives fill the royal capital, including Amy herself. None of them exist to satisfy a predetermined fantasy. Drawing closer, Alan makes it clear that no heroine governs this world. They are not characters bound to follow any scripted scenario. Believing the confrontation would finally end Amy's interference, he feels brief relief. Soon after, however, he realizes that hope was painfully naive. Anna walks through the academy garden while two classmates approach her about having lunch together. She agrees, though her attention seems distant and distracted. While heading toward the labyrinth again, she reflects on how she has been searching for private moments lately. Concern arises from the boy beside her, yet she avoids revealing her thoughts. Another student notices them and invites Anna and her companion to join lunch outside. They gather at a terrace table, choosing to eat in the pleasant weather instead of the dining hall. Food is shared among the group, and light remarks pass between them as they sit together. Anna remains composed, quietly observing everyone. Suddenly, a prince appears near their table. His presence interrupts the calm atmosphere, drawing everyone's attention as Anna reacts in visible surprise. The prince hands Anna a sealed letter and requests her answer immediately. She accepts it with steady composure, recognizing it as an official message from the king. After reading the contents, she states that she understands and will visit the king soon. Her expression remains controlled as she returns the letter, turning away. The prince declares that a carriage will arrive to escort her the next day. His departure leaves a tense silence behind him. Anna informs her companions that she has been summoned to the royal castle. Uncertainty spreads among them as she explains the details remain unclear. Examining the seal closely, she confirms the order is genuine. A quiet resolve settles over her as she prepares for what awaits. Anna smiles faintly while holding the letter, remarking that following the royal orders will only take about a week. Confidence shows in her calm expression. Her friends tease her gently during lunch, noticing her composed attitude. Light laughter spreads around the table as they continue eating together. One of them promises to help her catch up on missed lessons after she returns. None of them realize this meal will be their last gathering for some time. Later, Anna stands alone by a window, her thoughts growing heavier as the reality of departure settles in. Walking through the quiet corridor, she resolves to embrace her role fully and prepare for the consequences awaiting her. Anna prepares to depart as the carriage is expected soon. She entrusts matters at the academy to Alan and refuses a large farewell. The school announces her temporary absence due to official duties ordered by the king. Her classmates accept it, expecting her return within a week. 7 days pass, followed by 3 more. Yet Anna does not come back. Alan grows uneasy as uneventful lessons continue without her presence. Concerned, he visits the Duke, only to be met with anger. The older man questions why the delay has gone unnoticed. A troubling truth emerges as the Duke reveals he confirmed matters with the king. Doubt spreads when it becomes clear no such summons was issued. The Duke orders Alan to read the royal decree. Shock spreads across his face as he learns Anastasia has been commanded to marry a magician commander from the East Empire. Although the seal appears genuine, the king denies issuing such an order. Confusion deepens when no official summons to the palace can be confirmed. Suspicion shifts toward the crown prince, who avoids testifying and insists his actions protect the kingdom. Doubt grows as responsibility remains unclear. Rage overwhelms Alan when he realizes Anastasia has effectively been handed to an enemy nation. The truth feels like betrayal. Reports soon arrive that a peace convoy was attacked. War is declared by the East Empire, confirming the kingdom has been deceived. News arrives that the bride and her escort were killed, providing justification for war. Alan lowers his head, struggling to accept the report. Refusing to believe Anastasia is dead, he questions the conclusion. The Duke argues there is no proof of an attack and suspects abduction instead. Calmly analyzing the situation, the Duke concludes the Empire fabricated damage as an excuse for invasion. He further accuses the Crown Prince of arranging the forced marriage through deception. Despite his daughter's possible capture, the Duke remains composed and decisive. He orders Alan to travel to the Empire and locate her. Recognizing the danger ahead, the Duke instructs him to enlist formally as a soldier to avoid diplomatic complications. Alan accepts the Duke's plea without hesitation, vowing to bring Anastasia back. The Duke entrusts him once more, asking the B-rank adventurer to act. However, Alan explains he cannot move freely once integrated into the military structure. The Duke decides he will instead join the army under the Ramslet family's authority. Confidence returns to the Duke as he promises to arrange the details through Sabas. Determination settles between them as responsibility is clearly defined. Leaving the estate, Alan steps into the rain with renewed resolve. The looming conflict ahead no longer feels distant, recalling the game's events. He knows the East Empire slaughters civilians. Understanding the prince forged the decree, Alan prepares to confront the coming war. Anger burns across the Duke and Alan's faces as they direct their fury toward the Crown Prince. Shared resentment strengthens their resolve to uncover the truth. The following morning, Alan begins gathering information carefully. Two students reveal they were summoned to testify about the letter, confirming Anastasia remains inside the royal castle. Rumors spread that several students from opposing noble families were also invited. Suspicion deepens as political tension becomes more apparent. Uncertainty clouds the discussion when no one understands how the declaration of war connects to Anastasia's situation. Doubt persists despite fragments of new information. Leaning against the corridor wall, Alan chooses patience for now. Confidence in Anastasia's strength steadies his thoughts as he waits for the right moment. Alan questions the gatekeeper about the day Anastasia left for the royal castle. The man confirms a carriage exited through the east gate that afternoon. Details reveal the carriage departed from the royal capital and quickly left the area. Reports state the damaged vehicle was discovered a week later. Witnesses recall only luggage inside while the driver moved at high speed. Suspicion grows as the circumstances appear carefully arranged. Considering Anastasia's strength, Alan doubts she could be taken easily by a small group. The possibility emerges that another carriage carried her along a separate route. Confidence slowly returns as this theory forms. Belief in Anastasia's survival strengthens Alan's determination to continue the search. Alan thanks Sebas for the information and asks to be addressed more simply. Gratitude remains brief as heavier concerns occupy his thoughts. Evidence confirms Anastasia was sent to the royal castle, while suspicion of a forged decree lingers. The Crown Prince's involvement complicates any direct accusation. In response, the Duke issues a severe protest, refusing cooperation with the royal family until Anastasia returns. Tension rises throughout the capital as political divisions sharpen ladder. Amy approaches Alan in the corridor and mocks Anastasia's supposed fate. She casually repeats rumors about the bride's carriage being attacked. Accusations surface as Alan questions her involvement. Amy dismisses responsibility and coldly labels Anastasia a villainess, deepening his anger. Amy calmly describes a scenario where Anastasia joins the Dark Knight and returns for revenge. She treats the tragedy like a predetermined story that ends with the villainess defeated. Standing before Alan, she declares that he has already lost. Her mocking tone suggests he was never meant to influence the main narrative. Turning away, Amy continues belittling him while enjoying his anger. Alan's frustration deepens as she dismisses his efforts as meaningless. Her laughter echoes through the corridor, filled with open contempt. Satisfaction shows clearly as she delights in provoking him. Left alone, Alan reflects on his actions, realizing he gathered advantages too early and disrupted events, including destroying Amy's path to sainthood. Alan realizes his confidence in changing fate blinded him. Believing he had secured Anna's future and love, he underestimated hidden forces moving beyond his control. Now burdened by regret, he accepts responsibility for her disappearance. Though uncertain of his next step, determination hardens within him to save Anna. A noble girl gazed upward beneath the dark sky, sensing that events were shifting beyond expectation as unrest quietly spread across the kingdom. Soon after, officials announced that war with the Est Empire had begun. forcing leaders and students alike to confront a conflict that arrived earlier than history recorded. Beyond the capital, rumors described a banished noblewoman gathering forces, driven toward vengeance and prepared to exploit the chaos of civil strife. Distressed by escalating hatred, one young lady questioned the growing hostility dividing allies and enemies. Determined youths stepped forward, urging cooperation and seeking another path to protect the innocent. Amy stepped forward with arms wide, calling for calm as classmates reacted with shock and confusion at her sudden plea for peace. Students stared at her uncertainly, unsure whether her bold stance was bravery or recklessness in a hall filled with rising tension. Faculty members responded sternly, reminding everyone that discussion required mutual consent and discipline despite emotional appeals. Unease settled over Amy as she realized events were diverging sharply from the expected course of the original scenario. An official announcement confirmed the nation's entry into war, ordering students home and closing the academy indefinitely. A stern commander arrived at the academy, dismissing concerns about cancelled events and declaring that the kingdom required immediate assistance from its youth. Introducing himself as Otto von Jukes, he urged students to raise their hands and defend the homeland against the Empire's advancing forces. From the stage, his rallying cry echoed through the hall, pressing young men and women to prove their loyalty. Amid the silence, Alan stood and volunteered, identifying himself calmly as a second-year scholarship student. Whispers spread quickly, yet the commander demanded to know who else would follow his example. More students rose after Alan, volunteering despite uncertainty, and the commander accepted them as official applicants to be escorted to the royal palace. Among the crowd, some nobles remained seated, drawing quiet resentment from others who questioned the purpose of rank without shared sacrifice. Soon the selected youths changed into uniforms, received rear support assignments, and were informed they would be granted an audience with the king. Inside the grand hall, tension weighed on the volunteers as they prepared themselves to stand before the ruler of the kingdom. Kneeling together, they were formally welcomed and declared members of the royal army. After the royal audience concluded, Alan stepped forward and formally requested permission to speak before leaving the throne room. The other students were dismissed to their barracks while he remained, standing alone before the king and commander. Questioned about his origins and his connection to Ramslet, Alan clarified his intentions and declared loyalty to the royal family. Without hesitation, he requested immediate protection for Anastasia, the Duke's daughter, citing rising instability within the realm. Finally, he demanded strict punishment for those who misused the royal seal, shocking the court with his bold resolve. Alan's bold demands angered the commander, and the king questioned his audacity in speaking so directly within the throne room. Realizing the tension he caused, the young volunteer bowed deeply and admitted his misconduct, asking forgiveness for overstepping his position. Though dismissed and told to return to rear support, he refused to retreat quietly and instead requested assignment to the front lines to atone. Suspicion arose regarding his ties to Ramslet, yet Alan reaffirmed his loyalty and declared his dedication to serving the crown above all else. Impressed by his resolve, the king granted permission and ordered him to fight at the front against the imperial forces. The king ordered preparations for deployment and assigned Alan to the fortress city of Caldacia, tasking him with reclaiming the Bruzini region from imperial control. In return for victory, the monarch promised any reward he desired, yet forbade him from returning to the capital until success was achieved. Alan accepted the command respectfully, expressing gratitude while the commander questioned whether such trust was appropriate for someone previously insolent. After Alan departed, the king remarked on Ramslet's defiance and compared the situation to a master unable to control his own hound. Walking alone through the corridor, Alan understood that survival would determine whether he earned authority or perished anonymously. In a quiet room, two men discussed the king's temperament and considered whether Alan's bold appeal would succeed without provoking severe punishment. Meanwhile, Alan reflected on the risk of execution but trusted that the king would not act rashly over a student's discourtesy. Stepping into the city streets, he concluded that his gamble had worked and decided to report the outcome to the Duke. At home, he informed his mother about volunteering, downplaying the danger by explaining that students were assigned support duties rather than direct combat. During their conversation, she gently suggested his concern for Anastasia might be something more personal. During dinner, Alan's mother noticed his reaction at the mention of Anastasia and realized his concern for the Duke's daughter was unmistakable. Recalling the invitation they once received, she gently acknowledged his feelings, yet reminded him that affection alone could not change their circumstances. Calmly, she encouraged him to protect the girl if he truly cared, while warning him never to lose sight of what mattered most. Later that night, seated alone in his room, Alan reflected on his priorities and concluded that saving Anastasia outweighed every other ambition. Elsewhere, a furious creature reacted to unseen events, hinting that his decision would soon face unexpected opposition. Inside a ruined chamber, a dragon considered eliminating the crown prince, believing that removing a single human might end the growing conflict. Alan rejected the idea, explaining that killing one royal would provoke retaliation from the entire capital and escalate the violence further. Standing before the creatures, he insisted that wars were matters for humans to resolve and asked only that they search for Anastasia. After a brief exchange, the dragon agreed to locate her while urging Alan to survive the coming battles. With their pact settled, the dragon took flight, and Alan turned toward the front lines to face the war. Anastasia hurriedly packed her belongings after receiving the king's sudden order. Sweat covered her face as she prepared to leave the academy quickly. Alan arrived outside her room while she changed clothes. Anastasia became flustered, yet she still listened to him calmly. Soon afterward, Anastasia left the dormitory and reminded Alan to continue attending class before the royal carriage arrived. The carriage finally approached the academy gate. Anastasia stood silently beside her luggage while watching it stop before her. A nobleman stepped out and formally summoned Anastasia, reminding her to fulfill her duties as a noble. The royal messenger explained that a new decree had been issued by the kingdom. Anastasia listened carefully while sensing the situation becoming serious. Soon afterward, the document revealed an order demanding Anastasia marry Gunther Werner, the commander of the East Empire's magic division. Shock spread across her face immediately. The messenger warned that refusing the decree would make both Anastasia and her family traitors to the kingdom. Heavy pressure surrounded the unexpected decision. After delivering the order, the messenger calmly instructed Anastasia to continue the discussion inside the carriage before departing. Several guards gathered around Anastasia and formally escorted her away from the academy grounds. Anastasia carefully inspected the royal document and confirmed the seal appeared genuine. She understood that rejecting the order could become a serious crime. Although dissatisfied, Anastasia decided to obey temporarily and planned to speak directly with the king after arriving at the royal palace. During the journey, Anastasia suddenly realized the carriage route felt unfamiliar. Anxiety quickly spread across her face as suspicion grew stronger. Before she could react, someone restrained Anastasia from behind and covered her mouth, preventing her from calling for help inside the moving carriage. Elsewhere, several children continued playing peacefully, completely unaware of Anastasia's dangerous situation. Far away, children continued their game while Anastasia's blessing briefly reacted somewhere nearby. The strange moment passed before anyone understood its meaning. Meanwhile, Anastasia regained consciousness inside a dark underground passage. Hearing flowing water nearby, she realized her body could barely move. Several armed men transported Anastasia through a hidden mountain route while rushing toward their destination before anyone discovered them. Later, Anastasia awoke inside a remote wooden hideout surrounded by unfamiliar people. One of the kidnappers admitted using strong sedatives to keep her unconscious, bound tightly. Anastasia learned she was imprisoned deep within distant mountains, far from the royal capital. Anastasia discovered the kidnappers had escaped through a hidden sewer route connected to the royal castle. The realization made her suspect involvement from powerful figures within the kingdom. Despite being betrayed and abandoned, Anastasia still worried about the kingdom's future. Her calm reaction surprised the kidnappers watching her. Closely, the group revealed that the crown prince had sold her out. They also claimed her family would soon face execution for treason against the empire. Soon afterward, the kidnappers explained that Commander Gunther never intended to marry Anastasia, and that the royal decree was only deception. The leader then ordered his men to handle Anastasia however they wished as long as she remained alive. Refusing to surrender, Anastasia attempted to cast ice magic against the kidnappers, despite being tightly restrained inside the hideout. However, no magic appeared from her body. Confusion spread across Anastasia's face while the kidnappers watched her struggle helplessly. The group then revealed the ropes binding Anastasia were magical tools designed to completely block all magic abilities. They also mentioned the commander had provided them personally. Afterward, the kidnappers mocked Anastasia and claimed they would accompany her to the imperial capital during the transport. One of the men approached Anastasia closely and spoke about breaking proud nobles like her, treating the situation like entertainment. The kidnappers moved toward Anastasia and attempted to touch her restrained body. Fear spread across her face as she desperately tried to pull away. Suddenly, an invisible force violently threw several men across the room. The unexpected attack shocked everyone inside the hideout immediately. Confused by the situation, the kidnappers realized Anastasia still could not use magic. Panic slowly replaced their earlier confidence. At that moment, Anastasia recognized the mysterious power protecting her as the blessing once given by Rose. The glowing force continued striking nearby enemies. After the attack ended, one injured kidnapper died from his wounds. While the remaining men hurriedly discussed hiding the body, elsewhere, a young Anastasia happily offered sweets to her teacher during a peaceful moment from the past. The old mage warmly accepted her kindness. While sharing the sweets together, Anastasia listened carefully as her teacher spoke gently about enjoying simple things with others. Soon afterward, the old mage demonstrated wind magic by making the sweets float through the air before Anastasia's amazed eyes. Excited by the display, Anastasia asked whether she could also learn magic someday. Her teacher encouraged her to continue studying seriously. Back in the present, the magical blessing activated once again far away, causing concern among those connected to Anastasia's safety. Far away, a magical fairy sensed Anastasia's blessing, activating again, and immediately realized something terrible had happened around her. Soon afterward, 2 dragons flew across the mountains, while following the growing magical scent connected to Anastasia's location. One dragon suggested eliminating every human involved, but the other rejected the reckless idea and focused on rescuing Anastasia first. The pair decided to search for Alan and report Anastasia's situation to him, believing he would know how to save her properly. Meanwhile, Anastasia remained tied inside the hideout, but continued holding on to hope that someone would eventually rescue her. Alan sensed Anastasia's desperate signal during training and immediately realized she was calling for help from far away.